The wine glass shattered against marble, red liquid spreading like blood across the floor of Chicago's most ruthless corporate tower. Victoria Hale, secret billionaire, undercover trainee, watched her stolen ideas being praised while executives laughed at her protests. Then she did something that made the entire room go silent. She knelt beside the janitor to clean broken glass with her bare hands. The shard that cut her palm changed everything, because that quiet janitor cleaning floors, he owned the entire building. And he'd been watching her fight alone for weeks. This is their story. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this reaches. And buckle up, because what happens next will shake you. Let's go. Ryan Mercer stood in the executive bathroom on the 47th floor of Mercer Global Logistics headquarters, staring at his own reflection like it belonged to a stranger. 32 years old, billionaire, CEO of one of the largest logistics companies in North America. Single father to an 8-year-old daughter who barely looked at him anymore. And completely, devastatingly alone. He ran water over his hands, watching it circle the drain. Outside this bathroom, 200 employees worked under his name. His company moved freight across 12 countries. His signature appeared on contracts worth hundreds of millions. But he couldn't remember the last time someone had looked him in the eye and seen an actual human being instead of a quarterly earnings report. The door opened. Marcus Chen, his chief operating officer, walked in. "Ryan, the board's waiting. You're late for the investor call." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "You look exhausted." Just the meeting. Always the next meeting. Ryan dried his hands. "I'll be there in 2 minutes." Marcus left without another word. Ryan stared at himself again. Dark circles under his eyes. Gray threading through his hair earlier than his father's had. His daughter Lily had asked him yesterday morning what he wanted for his birthday next month, and he'd realized with sick clarity that he didn't want anything. Not cars, not vacations, not another acquisition. He wanted to know if the company he'd built had turned into something cruel. 3 weeks ago, an envelope had appeared on his desk. No return address. Inside were printed screenshots. Slack messages, emails, text chains between employees. All of them described a culture of fear. Managers screaming at warehouse staff. Executives mocking the help behind closed doors. Trainee programs that rewarded backstabbing and crushed anyone who didn't play power games. One message had stopped him cold. "This place destroys good people. I watched them break someone last week for asking about mental health benefits. I don't know who Ryan Mercer is anymore, but he's not here. He's just a name on the wall." Ryan had built this company from nothing after his wife Emma died. He'd poured everything into it, his grief, his rage, his desperate need to provide for Lily. Somewhere along the way, he'd stopped seeing the people working beside him. He'd become the kind of leader who approved policies written by HR directors he'd never met, who nodded through reports about efficiency improvements that meant firing 30 people before Christmas. He'd become the villain in his own story, so he made a decision. He was going to disappear. The maintenance uniform felt strange against his skin. Ryan stood in the basement locker room at 6:15 on Monday morning, pulling on gray work pants and a matching shirt with maintenance stitched across the back. His hands that signed 9-figure deals, were now sliding into heavy work gloves. Jerome Williams, the actual head of custodial services, stood beside him looking deeply uncomfortable. "Mr. Mercer, I still think this is insane," Ryan finished. "Yeah, probably. I was going to say unnecessary." Jerome was 62, built like a man who'd spent 40 years lifting things heavier than they should be. "You want to know what's happening in your company? I can tell you. You don't need to pretend to be..." "That's exactly the problem." Ryan adjusted the uniform shirt. It was too big in the shoulders. "Everyone tells me what they think I want to hear. I need to see what people do when they think I'm not watching." Jerome sighed. "How long?" "1 week. I'll work alongside your team, clean the executive floors, the trainee areas. You'll be the only person who knows who I really am. Your COO's going to lose his mind. Marcus thinks I'm visiting the Singapore office. He'll survive." Ryan caught his reflection in the locker mirror. The uniform changed everything. Without the tailored suits, the confident posture, the aura of wealth and power, he looked ordinary, tired, human, perfect. Jerome handed him a cleaning cart. "You're assigned to floors 40 through 47. The trainee program starts today. They're using the conference wing on 42. It's going to be chaos. I remember. Ryan had approved the program 6 months ago. 40 applicants competing for 8 positions in management. The best and brightest, or so the recruitment firm promised. He wondered how many would even notice a janitor existed. By 7:30, Ryan understood that invisible was exactly what he'd become. He pushed his cleaning cart down the 42nd floor corridor while employees streamed past him toward the conference rooms. Not one person made eye contact. A woman in expensive heels nearly knocked over his mop bucket, then kept walking without apologizing. 2 men in suits discussed a merger while standing directly in front of the trash can he was trying to empty, forcing him to work around them. "Excuse me," Ryan said quietly. They ignored him completely. He felt something twist in his chest. Was this what every custodian experienced? This complete erasure of their existence? The trainee orientation was scheduled for 8 o'clock in conference room B. Ryan had read the names on the acceptance list. Harvard graduates, former consultants, people with family connections to old money. The future leaders of Mercer Global, handpicked to continue his legacy. He wondered what kind of legacy he was actually building. At 7:55, he wheeled his cart past the open conference room door. The trainees were gathering, shaking hands, performing the elaborate social dance of people sizing up their competition. Designer bags on chairs. Confident laughter. The sharp smell of expensive cologne. Ryan kept his head down and started cleaning the water fountain outside the room. That's when he heard the voice. "No, I understand. I'll call you back tonight. I promise." A woman stood near the windows, phone pressed to her ear, voice low and strained. She was around 30, dressed simply compared to the others. Dark pants, white blouse, minimal jewelry. No designer labels visible. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried a worn leather portfolio instead of a luxury bag. "I know the foundation gala is important," she continued. "I'll handle it remotely. I told you, I need to do this myself." She ended the call and stood there for a moment, shoulders tight with tension. Then she noticed Ryan. Most people looked through him. She looked at him. "Good morning," she said, offering a small smile. Ryan blinked. "Morning. You're starting early. Building doesn't clean itself." She laughed, a real laugh, not the polite corporate chuckle he heard in boardrooms. "Fair point. I'm Victoria." She extended her hand. Ryan stared at it. When was the last time someone had offered to shake his hand when he wasn't wearing a suit? He pulled off his work glove and shook it. Her grip was firm, confident. "Ryan," he said, then caught himself. People call me Ray." "Nice to meet you, Ray." She glanced toward the conference room where the other trainees were networking aggressively. "This is all a bit much, isn't it? First day? First day pretending I belong here." She said it lightly, but he caught the edge underneath. "Everyone else seems to have it figured out already. Maybe they're just better at pretending." Victoria studied him for a moment, like she was actually considering his words instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. "That's probably the wisest thing anyone's said to me in 6 months. Before Ryan could respond, a voice cut across the hallway. "Victoria, stop chatting with the help and get in here. Networking starts now." The speaker was a man in his late 20s, tall and athletic with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that probably charmed investors, but made Ryan's instincts scream predator. His suit was Armani, his watch was Rolex. His handshake, Ryan watched him work the room through the doorway, was practiced enough to seem genuine. Victoria's expression went carefully neutral. "That's Trevor Collins. He introduced himself in the elevator. He seems like exactly the kind of person who succeeds in places like this," Victoria finished. "Yeah." She gave Ryan one more quick smile, then walked into the conference room. Ryan went back to cleaning the water fountain, but his attention was locked on the room behind him. The orientation was led by Monica Graves, the HR director Ryan had hired 2 years ago. She was 45, razor sharp, and had a reputation for running the trainee program like a military operation. "Welcome to Mercer Global Logistics," Monica said, her voice crisp and authoritative. 40 of you applied, 8 of you will receive offers. The rest will receive excellent networking opportunities and resume material. Polite laughter. "This program is not about participation trophies. We're looking for leaders who can make hard decisions, drive results, and represent this company at the highest levels. You'll be evaluated on individual performance, team contributions, and executive presence. Executive presence. Ryan had heard that phrase 1,000 times. He'd never really questioned what it meant until now, listening from outside the room while he emptied trash cans. Your first assignment, Monica continued, is a group project analyzing our current delivery optimization challenges in the Midwest region. You'll present solutions to senior leadership at the end of the week. Choose your teams wisely. The room erupted into movement. Ryan watched through the doorway as alliances formed in seconds. Trevor Collins was immediately surrounded by people who recognized Alpha Dog energy and wanted to attach themselves to it. 3 women who looked like they'd stepped out of a luxury catalog gravitated toward each other. A nervous-looking guy with glasses got ignored entirely. Victoria stood alone near the back of the room, observing. Trevor noticed her isolation. He cut through the crowd with predatory efficiency. "Victoria, right? You're coming with us. I'm building the winning team." "I haven't even heard your approach yet," Victoria said carefully. "Trust me, we're going to dominate this thing. I've already got connections with 2 of the senior executives. We play this right, and we're all getting offers." "I'd rather earn it on merit." Trevor's smile didn't waver, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Merit is great. Connections are better. You coming or not?" Victoria hesitated. Ryan could see the calculation happening, refuse and become an outsider, or join and compromise her principles. "I'll join," she said finally, "but I want to contribute real analysis, not just coast on your networking." "Of course. That's what I want too." Trevor's hand landed on her shoulder in a gesture that looked friendly but felt possessive. "We're going to kill this." Ryan pushed his cleaning cart down the hallway, jaw tight. He'd seen this play out 100 times in business. The charismatic manipulator who promised collaboration but delivered exploitation. And the talented person who got used up and discarded. He wondered if Victoria knew what she'd just agreed to. The week unfolded like a masterclass in corporate cruelty. Ryan cleaned floors, emptied trash, and scrubbed bathrooms while watching the trainee program devour people whole. The teams worked 18-hour days, sleep-deprived presentations, passive-aggressive emails copied to Monica, sabotage disguised as collaboration. Trevor's team, Trevor, Victoria, and 3 others, quickly emerged as frontrunners, but Ryan noticed the dynamic immediately. Trevor talked. Victoria worked. On Tuesday, Ryan was cleaning the small conference room they'd claimed as headquarters. Victoria sat alone at the table at 11 p.m., surrounded by spreadsheets and logistics maps, her earlier polish replaced by exhaustion and determination. "Building's closing soon," Ryan said quietly from the doorway. She looked up, startled, then recognized him. "Ray, hi, sorry, I'll clean up my mess." "Not what I meant." He gestured at the papers. "You've been here since 6 a.m. "How do you—" She stopped. "You notice things. Part of the job. Invisible people see everything." Victoria leaned back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. "I used to think hard work mattered. Now I'm realizing presentation matters more." "The blonde guy?" "Trevor." She said his name like it tasted bad. "He's brilliant at taking credit for other people's ideas. I spent 6 hours analyzing warehouse efficiency reports today. He spent 6 hours playing golf with the VP of operations. Guess whose name got mentioned in the elevator pitch to Monica?" Ryan moved into the room, emptying the trash can near her table. "Why do you stay?" "Gordon, because I'm trying to prove something." Victoria stared at her spreadsheets. "Everyone expects me to fail here. I need to show them I can succeed on my own." There was a story under those words. Ryan wanted to ask, but asking meant revealing he cared about more than trash schedules. Instead, he said, "The warehouse efficiency stuff. What did you find?" Victoria blinked, surprised that the janitor was asking about her work. Then something shifted in her expression, like she was grateful someone was curious. "The whole system is backwards," she said, warming to the topic. "Corporate sets impossible delivery windows without consulting the people actually doing the deliveries. Warehouse workers know exactly where the bottlenecks are, but nobody asks them. It's like—" She paused, searching for the right metaphor. "Like management sees workers as machinery instead of people who know things." Ryan finished. "Exactly." Victoria looked at him with something close to wonder. "How did you—" "I pay attention." He tied off the trash bag. "You should tell them that in the presentation." Trevor will never let me lead the presentation. He's already planning to position himself as the strategic visionary. Then make sure your ideas are so good he can't cut them out. Victoria smiled, tired but genuine. You're a weird janitor, Ray. You're a weird trainee, Victoria. She laughed. Then she went back to work. Ryan left the room with the growing certainty that he was watching something important happen. Victoria wasn't just smart. She was principled. In a building full of people performing success, she was actually trying to solve real problems, and Trevor Collins was going to destroy her for it. Wednesday brought the first major presentation check-in. Each team presented preliminary findings to Monica and two senior executives. Trevor's team went last. Ryan was cleaning windows at the back of the conference room, invisible as always. The executives sat at the head of the table. Monica, plus David Park, and Jennifer Hamilton, two of his most senior VPs. Ryan had worked with them for years. They'd never once looked at him the way they were currently looking through him. Trevor stood at the front of the room, commanding attention like he'd been born to it. Our analysis reveals 3 critical inefficiencies, he began, clicking through a presentation that Ryan recognized as Victoria's work from 2 nights ago. First, warehouse scheduling doesn't account for real-world driver constraints. Second, communication between logistics coordinators and ground-level staff is functionally non-existent. Third, performance metrics incentivize speed over sustainability, leading to burnout and turnover. It was brilliant. Every word of it was Victoria's analysis. Trevor presented it like he'd personally discovered fire. Monica leaned forward. This is excellent work, Trevor. The warehouse scheduling piece especially. Where did you get that insight? I spent time reviewing operational reports and identifying patterns corporate overlooks. Trevor's smile was modest, practiced. It's about seeing the system from the ground up. Ryan's hands tightened on his window cleaner. David Park nodded approvingly. You've got executive instincts. Most trainees just regurgitate what they learned in business school. You're thinking strategically. I had help from the team, of course. Trevor gestured vaguely at Victoria and the others. Victoria did some of the initial data gathering. Data gathering. Like she was an intern who'd run errands instead of the architect of the entire analysis. Victoria's expression remained carefully neutral, but Ryan saw her hands clench under the table. Jennifer Hamilton glanced at Victoria. Do you have anything to add? Every eye in the room turned to her. Trevor's smile stayed perfectly friendly, but there was a warning in his eyes. Victoria took a breath. I think the warehouse piece goes deeper than we've acknowledged. The real issue is that corporate decision-makers never actually talk to the people doing the physical work. Drivers, warehouse staff, custodial teams, they have operational knowledge that never reaches the executives who set policy. That's a nice thought, Trevor cut in smoothly, but we're not running a democracy. Leadership requires making tough calls based on data, not feelings. I'm not talking about feelings. I'm talking about experiential knowledge. Victoria's voice stayed level, but there was steel underneath. When you design a system without input from the people operating it, you create inefficiencies that data analysis alone can't reveal. Monica's expression cooled. This company operates at scale. We can't survey every warehouse worker before making strategic decisions. I'm not suggesting surveys. I'm suggesting conversation. 10 minutes with a driver could reveal more than 10 hours of spreadsheet analysis. Trevor laughed. Not mean, just patronizing enough to sting. Victoria, you're very idealistic, but this is a business. We don't have time for feeling-based leadership. It's not feeling-based. It's, I think we've heard enough. Jennifer Hamilton cut her off with the tone of someone ending an awkward dinner conversation. Trevor, your team is on the right track. Keep refining the data analysis. We'll see the final presentation Friday. The meeting ended. Trevor packed up his laptop, already schmoozing with David Park about golf handicaps. The other team members filtered out. Victoria sat alone at the table, staring at nothing. Ryan approached with his cleaning cart. You okay? He asked quietly. She looked up, and for a second her professional mask cracked. I handed him everything. The research, the analysis, the operational framework, and he presented it like I was just some assistant who helped with data entry. Why didn't you push back harder? Because every time I try to assert expertise, I get labeled emotional or difficult. Victoria's laugh was bitter. Trevor can interrupt people and it's confident leadership. I do it and I'm not executive enough. Ryan had heard those exact phrases in performance reviews. He'd probably even used them himself back when he was too disconnected to recognize the double standard. The thing about warehouse workers knowing stuff, Ryan said carefully. You're right. Doesn't matter if I'm right. Matters if they listen. Victoria started gathering her papers. And they only listen to people who look like leaders, which apparently means confident men in expensive suits who take credit for other people's work. She walked out before Ryan could respond. He stood alone in the empty conference room, rage building in his chest. This was his company. He'd built it. And somehow, it had become a place where people like Victoria got crushed, while people like Trevor thrived. Something had to break. He just didn't know it would happen in 48 hours. Thursday night, the company hosted a networking gala on the 47th floor. The event was technically optional, but everyone knew it was mandatory. Senior executives, major clients, board members, all gathered in the glass-walled event space that overlooked the Chicago skyline. Crystal chandeliers, open bar, a string quartet playing in the corner. Ryan had attended 100 events like this as CEO. Tonight, he was here to refill ice buckets and clear cocktail plates. The trainees circulated through the crowd like sharks scenting blood. Trevor moved between executives with practiced ease, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, name-dropping connections, making himself indispensable. Victoria stood near the windows, alone. She'd dressed up for the event, simple black dress, minimal jewelry, but compared to the other trainees in designer gowns and power suits, she looked understated, invisible in a different way than Ryan was invisible. He was refilling champagne glasses at a side table when he heard Trevor's voice rise above the ambient noise. The warehouse optimization strategy is really about changing the culture from the top down. You can't let ground-level sentiment dictate corporate strategy. He was talking to Monica and two board members, presenting Victoria's ideas again. This time he'd refined the language, stripped out her emphasis on worker input, and repositioned everything as top-down executive decision-making. Ryan saw Victoria notice, saw her face go through a dozen emotions in 3 seconds. Then she walked over. Trevor, can I talk to you for a second? Trevor's smile didn't waver. Kind of in the middle of something, Victoria. It'll just take a minute, Monica raised an eyebrow. We're discussing strategy, Victoria. If you have input, you can email Trevor later. I'd rather discuss it now, since it's my strategy. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Trevor's expression stayed friendly, but his voice gained an edge. We worked on it as a team, Victoria. That's what collaboration means. Collaboration means sharing work, not stealing it. Monica's face went hard. Victoria, this is completely inappropriate. What's inappropriate is presenting my analysis word for word without attribution. Victoria's voice stayed calm, but every person within earshot had stopped talking. I spent 60 hours researching warehouse operations, interviewing logistics coordinators, and building that entire framework. Trevor presented it like he'd done it himself. Trevor laughed, casual, dismissive, designed to make her look unhinged. Victoria, you helped with data gathering. I turned it into actual strategy. There's a difference between collecting information and knowing what to do with it. I gave you a complete operational framework. You literally read from my slides. This is embarrassing. Jennifer Hamilton had joined the growing circle of observers. Victoria, if you have concerns about team dynamics, you handle them privately. You don't ambush colleagues at professional events. I tried handling it privately. I tried bringing it up in meetings. Every time I got talked over or dismissed as too emotional. Victoria's hands were shaking now, but her voice stayed steady. When does it stop being emotional and start being accurate? When you learn executive presence, Monica's tone was ice, which means knowing when to push and when to step back. This, she gestured at the scene, is the opposite of executive presence. Ryan stood 15 feet away, frozen with a champagne bottle in his hand. He could intervene, right now, end this. But he needed to see how far it would go, needed to see if anyone would defend her. Trevor put his hand on Victoria's shoulder, gentle, concerned, perfectly calculated. Look, I know you worked hard on the research. Nobody's saying you didn't contribute. But leadership is about knowing how to package ideas for executive consumption. That's my strength. It's okay to let other people take things across the finish line. It's not about ego. Victoria pulled away from his touch. It's about integrity. It's about being a team player. Trevor's voice hardened, which you're clearly struggling with. The crowd had grown. 20 people now, all watching Victoria self-destruct in real time. David Park cleared his throat. Maybe we should table this discussion. That's when it happened. Victoria turned to grab her phone from a nearby cocktail table. Her arm brushed a wine glass. It teetered, fell, and shattered against the marble floor. Red wine exploded across white marble like a crime scene. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Trevor laughed. Perfect timing. He raised his voice, projecting to the room. Can we get the janitor over here? Someone important might step in this. The crowd shifted, uncomfortable but not enough to intervene. Victoria stared at the broken glass, and Ryan saw something break in her expression too. Then she did something nobody expected. She knelt down and started picking up broken glass with her bare hands. The room went silent. Victoria, what are you doing? Monica hissed. Get up. Someone needs to clean it. Victoria's voice was hollow. Wouldn't want anyone important to step in it. Ryan moved without thinking. He crossed the distance in 4 strides, his cleaning cart forgotten. He knelt beside Victoria, pulling the cloth from his belt. Don't, he said quietly. You'll cut yourself. But she'd already grabbed a piece of broken glass. The shard sliced across her palm. Blood welled immediately, mixing with the wine. Ryan grabbed her hand, pressing the cloth against the wound. Around them, the executives stared, more disturbed by the messiness of the scene than concerned about her injury. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression shattered. Why? She whispered. Why is this what it takes to matter? Ryan didn't have an answer. Trevor's voice cut through the silence. Victoria, you need to get yourself together. This is not how professionals behave. That's when she snapped. Victoria stood, blood dripping from her wrapped hand, and faced the entire room. You want to talk about professional behavior? Her voice was quiet, but it carried. Let's talk about a company that rewards theft over integrity, that promotes people who steal credit and punishes people who tell the truth, that treats janitors, drivers, and warehouse workers like they're invisible, then acts shocked when nobody wants to work here. Monica stepped forward. Victoria, you need to leave. Now. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. Monica's voice was pure authority. You're clearly dealing with some personal issues, and this environment is making them worse. I'm recommending you withdraw from the program before you damage your professional reputation further. My reputation? Victoria laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. I've spent my entire career building a reputation on competence and integrity. This company doesn't care about either of those things. It cares about performance, about saying the right things to the right people, about making powerful men feel smart while they steal from everyone around them. Trevor held up his hands, playing the reasonable one. Victoria, I understand you're upset, but making wild accusations isn't going to help. They're not wild. They're documented. Victoria pulled out her phone with her good hand. I have emails, timestamps, version histories of documents proving I created that entire strategy. But we both know it doesn't matter, because you'll say I'm being emotional, and they'll believe you. She looked around the room at the executives, the board members, the trainees who'd watched her drown without throwing a rope. This company destroys good people, she said quietly, and you all just watch it happen. Then she walked out. Ryan stood there, his janitor's cloth still stained with her blood, watching her disappear through the crowd. Nobody followed her. Nobody defended her. Monica turned to the room with a tight smile. I apologize for that disruption. Sometimes the pressure of competitive programs brings out instability in candidates. We'll handle this internally. The crowd nodded, murmured agreement, and went back to their drinks. Trevor shook his head sadly. I really tried to help her. Some people just can't handle high-stakes environments. Ryan looked at him, really looked at him, and saw everything wrong with the company he'd built reflected in one smiling face. He set down his cleaning supplies. Tomorrow, the disguise ended. Tomorrow, people were going to learn what happened when you mistook silence for approval. Tomorrow, Ryan Mercer was going to burn down the culture he'd accidentally created and build something better from the ashes. But tonight, he walked out of his own party and stood in the empty hallway where Victoria's blood still stained the marble floor, wondering if 1 week of watching had come too late to change anything that mattered. Ryan didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, still wearing the maintenance uniform, staring at his phone. The screen showed Victoria's LinkedIn profile, sparse, deliberately vague. No mention of family wealth, no hotel empire, just strategic consultant, and a degree from Stanford that she'd somehow kept quiet during the entire program. Most people padded their resumes. Victoria had stripped hers bare. He'd spent 4 hours after the gala in his office, his real office, not the janitor's closet, pulling her background check from HR files. What he found made his jaw tighten. Victoria Hale wasn't just wealthy. She was generational wealth. Her family owned the Hale Hotel Group, 37 luxury properties across North America. Her personal investment portfolio included stakes in 4 Fortune 500 companies. She sat on the board of a foundation that moved more money annually than most corporations. And she'd walked into his trainee program pretending to be nobody. The question was why? Ryan set down his phone and looked at his reflection in the dark window. Somewhere in this city, Victoria was probably awake too, wondering if she'd just destroyed her career over principles nobody else seemed to care about. He knew that feeling. He'd felt it the day Emma died, when the hospital bills arrived and he realized that all his business success meant nothing because he couldn't save the person who mattered most. He'd felt it every time Lily looked at him with eyes that didn't quite see a father anymore, just a man who paid for things and disappeared into work. He'd felt it tonight, watching a room full of people he'd hired treat a bleeding woman like an inconvenience. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Singapore deal closed. Board wants briefing Monday. You back Saturday? Ryan typed back. Change of plans. I'll be at the office tomorrow. Call emergency board meeting for 9 a.m. Marcus responded immediately. Everything okay? No, Ryan thought. Nothing's okay. And it hasn't been for a long time. But he just wrote, we need to talk about company culture. He could practically see Marcus's confusion through the phone. Culture wasn't something Ryan talked about. Numbers, strategy, acquisitions, those were his languages. Culture was HR's department. Except HR had spent the evening watching a trainee self-destruct and decided the problem was her instability, not the system that created it. Ryan stood and walked to Lily's room. His daughter was asleep, dark hair spread across her pillow, one arm wrapped around a stuffed elephant Emma had given her years ago. She looked peaceful. She always did when she was sleeping. It was only when she was awake that he saw the distance in her eyes. He'd been so focused on building an empire for her future that he'd forgotten to be present in her childhood. Another thing he'd failed at while thinking he was succeeding. Tomorrow, things changed. Tomorrow, people were going to learn that the janitor they'd ignored had been watching everything. He just hoped it wasn't already too late. Yeah. Friday morning arrived with the kind of cold rain that made Chicago feel like it was built from gray concrete and colder intentions. Ryan stood in the executive bathroom again, but this time he was stripping off the maintenance uniform for the last time. The custom suit felt strange after a week of work clothes. He knotted his tie, Italian silk probably worth more than Jerome made in a week, and stared at his reflection. Same face, different costume. He wondered which version was real anymore. At 8:45, he walked into the executive conference room where the board was gathering. 7 people who'd helped him build Mercer Global into what it was today. David Park and Jennifer Hamilton were already seated, looking confused about the emergency meeting. Monica Graves arrived looking irritated that her schedule had been disrupted. Marcus was the last to enter. He froze when he saw Ryan. You're supposed to be in Singapore. I was never in Singapore. Then where the hell have you been for a week? Ryan didn't answer. He waited until everyone was seated, then closed the conference room door. I need to show you something, he said. He opened his laptop and connected it to the projection screen. The first image appeared, security footage from the 42nd floor, time-stamped Monday morning. The video showed Trevor's team in their claimed conference room. Victoria was presenting analysis to the group. Trevor was nodding, taking notes. What are we watching? Jennifer asked. The birth of a theft, Ryan said quietly. He fast-forwarded through hours of footage. Victoria working alone late into the night. Trevor arriving the next morning, photographing her work with his phone when she stepped out for coffee. The presentation to Monica on Wednesday. Trevor delivering Victoria's analysis word for word while she sat silently fuming. I don't understand, Monica said carefully. Are you spying on the trainee program? I've been working as a janitor for the past week. The room went silent. Marcus spoke first. You've been what? Someone sent me evidence that this company has developed a culture problem. I wanted to see it myself, so I disguised myself as maintenance staff and watched. Ryan clicked to the next video, the gala. Victoria confronting Trevor, the wine glass shattering, her kneeling to clean it while executives stared. This was last night, Ryan continued. 20 senior people watched a trainee have a breakdown, and not one person asked if she was okay. They asked if the floor was clean. She was being unprofessional, Monica said defensively, making wild accusations in front of clients and board members. The accusations weren't wild, they were documented. Ryan pulled up email logs, file timestamps, version histories. Victoria Hale created the entire warehouse optimization strategy. Trevor Collins stole it, presented it as his own, and when she called him out, you recommended she withdraw from the program for being unstable. Monica's face went red. She attacked a colleague publicly, after trying every private channel and being dismissed. I have the emails, Monica. 3 separate times she tried to address it through proper channels. 3 times she was told to be a team player. David Park leaned forward. Ryan, even if Collins took credit inappropriately, Victoria's behavior last night was unacceptable. You can't blow up at networking events. Why not? Ryan's voice stayed level, but everyone in the room felt the temperature drop. Trevor can steal her work publicly, and that's confident leadership. She can object to being robbed, and that's emotional instability. What exactly is the difference? The difference is knowing how to navigate corporate politics, Jennifer said. That's part of executive presence. Executive presence. Ryan repeated the phrase like it was poison. Let me tell you what I learned about executive presence this week. It means being tall, white, male, and good at golf. It means knowing which executives to flatter. It means taking credit for other people's work with enough confidence that nobody questions it. It has nothing to do with competence and everything to do with performance. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Ryan, you're taking this personally. Damn right I'm taking it personally. I built this company, and somewhere along the way it turned into a place that crushes good people and rewards sociopaths. Do you know how many employees ignored me this week? Not because they're bad people, but because they've been trained to only see value in people who look powerful. I've created a culture where janitors are invisible, warehouse workers are interchangeable, and the only thing that matters is looking like you belong in the boardroom. He clicked to another video. This one showed Victoria alone in the conference room at midnight on Tuesday, surrounded by logistics reports and supply chain analyses. The timestamp showed she'd been there for 17 hours straight. Victoria Hale is one of the most talented people we've seen in years, Ryan said. Her analysis of our warehouse operations is better than anything our actual operations team has produced. She identified inefficiencies we've been hemorrhaging money on for 2 years, and we almost drove her out because she didn't perform ambition the way we wanted. Who is she? Marcus asked quietly. Marcus. Ryan pulled up Victoria's real background. Heiress to the Hale Hotel Group. Personal net worth north of $300 million. Board member of one of the largest charitable foundations in the country. She walked into our trainee program under a fake background because she wanted to be judged on merit instead of connections. The room absorbed that information in silence. She's richer than most of us, Jennifer said slowly. Why would she? Because she actually cares about being good at something instead of just looking good at something. Ryan closed his laptop. Which is apparently a disqualifying trait in this company. Monica found her voice. What do you want us to do, Ryan? Apologize to her? She's probably gone. She made it very clear last night that she doesn't want to work here. I don't want you to apologize. I want you to fix the system that created this situation. Ryan leaned against the table. Starting with Trevor Collins. He's out of the program. Effective immediately. Based on what grounds? Jennifer asked. If we fire him for this, he could sue for wrongful termination. Based on the grounds that he violated our code of conduct by misrepresenting his work. I have documentation. He can leave quietly, or we can make it public. His choice. Monica opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Furthermore, Ryan continued, I want a complete audit of our hiring, promotion, and evaluation practices. I want to know how many talented people we've overlooked because they didn't fit someone's image of what a leader looks like. And I want to know how many mediocre people we've promoted because they were good at playing politics. That's going to take months, David protested. Then we better start today. Marcus was watching Ryan with an expression somewhere between concern and confusion. What happened to you this week? Ryan thought about Victoria kneeling on marble to clean broken glass, about the warehouse worker who'd told him on Wednesday that management didn't care if they lived or died as long as quotas were met, about his daughter's face when he'd missed her school play last month because of a meeting that probably didn't matter. I remembered what it felt like to be human, he said quietly, and I realized I'd forgotten to run a company that treated people like they were. He stood, signaling the meeting was ending. Trevor Collins will be notified this morning. Monica, I want the cultural audit plan on my desk by Monday. The rest of you, I need you to think very carefully about whether you want to be part of building something better, or if you're more comfortable with what we've been. Nobody spoke as he walked out. Ryan went straight to Jerome's office in the basement. The older man was reviewing maintenance schedules and looked up in surprise when the CEO walked in. Mr. Mercer, I wasn't expecting, I need Victoria Hale's contact information. Jerome's eyebrows rose. The trainee who quit? She didn't quit, she was pushed out, and I'm going to fix it. Sir, she made it pretty clear she doesn't want anything to do with this company. I know, that's why I need to talk to her. Ryan paused. Did you know who she really was? I knew she was different from the others. Helped me move supply boxes on Tuesday without being asked. Brought coffee for the night cleaning crew. Treated people like they mattered. Jerome studied him. Kind of like someone else I met this week. Ryan managed a small smile. HR has her emergency contact info. Can you get it for me? You're the CEO. You could just demand it. And she could just refuse to answer when I call. I need this to not feel like a power play. Jerome nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do. 2 hours later, Ryan stood outside a high-rise apartment building in the Gold Coast neighborhood, holding a piece of paper with an address that Jerome had acquired through what he'd called friendly channels with the security desk. The building was the kind of place where doormen wore white gloves and residents paid more in monthly fees than most people made in a year. Ryan gave his name to the desk, his real name, not the janitor alias, and waited while they called up. The doorman covered the phone. Ms. Hale says she's not taking visitors. Tell her Ray the janitor needs to talk to her. Confusion crossed the doorman's face, but he relayed the message. A pause. Then, she says you can come up, penthouse level. The elevator opened onto a private foyer with one door. Victoria answered before Ryan could knock. She looked different. No professional armor, no carefully neutral expression. She wore jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. The bandage on her hand from last night's cut was the only reminder of the gala. You're not a janitor, she said. No. You're Ryan Mercer, the Ryan Mercer, CEO and founder. Yes. Victoria stared at him for a long moment. Then she started laughing. Not happy laughter, the kind that came when the universe revealed a joke so absurd you couldn't process it any other way. Of course you are. Of course the one person in that entire building who treated me like a human being was the billionaire playing dress-up. She leaned against the doorframe. What do you want? An apology for calling your company a soul-crushing machine? Because I'm not sorry. I don't want an apology. I want to offer you a job. I already turned down your trainee program by bleeding on it. Not as a trainee, as a strategic operations executive, senior level, reporting directly to me. Victoria's laughter died. You're serious. Your warehouse analysis was the best operational thinking I've seen in 5 years. You identified problems my actual ops team has been missing. And you did it in 4 days while fighting off a narcissist who was stealing your work. Trevor. Victoria's expression hardened. Let me guess. He's still in the program, and I'm the cautionary tale about women who can't handle pressure. He's being removed today. Monica Graves is on thin ice, and I'm restructuring how we evaluate talent so that people like you don't get pushed out by people like him. Victoria stepped back, gesturing him inside. Her apartment was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than a car, art on the walls that looked like it belonged in museums. But what struck Ryan was how impersonal it felt. Like a hotel suite someone was staying in temporarily. Why did you do it? Ryan asked. You don't need this job. You don't need any job. Why go through a trainee program under a fake identity? Victoria walked to the windows, arms crossed. Do you know what it's like to have people only see your last name? I've had business partners propose to me after one meeting. I've had executives plagiarize my ideas and then explain them back to me like I couldn't possibly understand complex concepts. I've sat in boardrooms where men patted my hand and told me not to worry about the difficult financial parts. So you wanted to prove you could succeed without the name. I wanted to know if I was actually good at anything, or if people just pretended I was because they wanted access to my money. She turned to face him. Turns out the answer is complicated. Because I am good. My analysis was solid. My operational framework would have saved your company millions. But none of that mattered because I didn't look like Trevor Collins. Ryan moved to stand beside her at the window. Below them, Chicago sprawled out in cold morning light. I spent a week watching my own company, he said quietly. Really watching it, not just reading reports filtered through executives trying to tell me what I wanted to hear. And what I saw was ugly. We've built a culture that rewards performance over substance, that treats people as resources instead of humans, that drives out anyone who doesn't fit a narrow definition of what leadership looks like. And you think one CEO having an epiphany changes that? No, I think it takes years of deliberate work and probably fails more than it succeeds. But I'd rather fail trying than keep succeeding at something that's fundamentally broken. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Why me? You could hire anyone. Because you knelt down to clean broken glass when everyone else was worried about their networking opportunities. Because you spent 60 hours building something excellent when you could have coasted on Trevor's connections. Because when they pushed you out, you didn't beg to stay. You told them exactly what was wrong with them and walked away. That's not executive presence. No, it's integrity. And I've spent this week learning that integrity is a lot rarer and more valuable than executive presence. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him, the same way she'd looked at the janitor by the water fountain on Monday morning, seeing a person instead of a position. What happened to you? She asked. The real story, CEOs don't usually disguise themselves as janitors for educational purposes, Ryan told her. About Emma dying, about Lily growing up with a father who was physically present but emotionally absent, about the anonymous envelope with evidence of a cruel culture, about wanting to know if he'd built something good or just something profitable. I thought I was building a legacy for my daughter, he finished. Turns out I was building the kind of company I'd never want her to work for. Victoria's expression softened. I lost my mother 2 years ago, cancer. She spent 30 years building the hotel business, and the whole time, men treated her like she was lucky to have inherited something instead of brilliant for growing it. She used to say the hardest part wasn't proving she was capable. It was proving it over and over again to every new person who assumed incompetence. Is that why you hid your background? I wanted one place where people couldn't make assumptions, where I could just be good at something and have that be enough. She laughed bitterly. Didn't work out that way. It could. Here, if you're willing to try. Victoria turned away from the window. What exactly are you offering? A senior role building, better operational systems, real authority to change how we work, access to warehouse teams, drivers, ground-level staff that corporate usually ignores, and a direct line to me because I'm done filtering information through people who tell me what they think I want to hear. What about Monica? David? Jennifer? They're not going to suddenly respect my input because you gave me a title. Then they'll learn or leave. I'm done protecting a culture that protects the wrong people. Victoria studied him with those sharp, assessing eyes. You know what the hardest part of last night was? It wasn't Trevor stealing my work. It wasn't Monica dismissing me. It was realizing that you were right there, watching it all happen, and I thought you were just a janitor who couldn't do anything about it. Ryan felt that land like a punch. I should have intervened sooner. Why didn't you? Because I needed to see how far it would go. If anyone would defend you, if the system would self-correct. He met her eyes. It didn't. Nobody defended you. The system protected Trevor because he looked like success, and it would have discarded you because you looked like a problem. And now you want to hire the problem to fix the system. I want to hire the person who saw what was broken and cared enough to say it out loud. Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then she said, I need conditions. Name them. 1. I want access to every operational report, every warehouse complaint, every driver grievance from the past 3 years. If I'm fixing this, I need to know how deep the rot goes. Done. 2. I want the authority to fire managers who abuse their teams. Not demote, not reprimand, fire. If someone's creating a toxic environment, they're gone. Ryan hesitated. That was more authority than any senior executive currently had. But he thought about the managers he'd watched this week, the ones who treated staff like machinery. Done. With documentation and review. But yes. 3. I want Trevor Collins blackballed, not just removed from the program. I want him gone from the industry. Because if he doesn't face real consequences, every other ambitious sociopath learns that stealing and lying works as long as you're charming about it. That one was harder. Blackballing someone could destroy their career permanently. Ryan thought about the hours Victoria had spent alone, building something excellent, about Trevor's smile as he presented her work, about all the talented people who'd been crushed by people like Trevor over the years. I'll make calls. He won't work in logistics again. Victoria's eyebrows rose. That's vindictive. That's justice. And I'm tired of watching injustice get rewarded. She walked to her kitchen, pulled out 2 glasses and a bottle of water, poured them both drinks. Her hands were steady, but Ryan saw the faint tremor in her fingers, the aftershock of last night's confrontation finally catching up. You're still processing it, he said quietly. I told a room full of executives they were complicit in cruelty. I bled on their marble floors. I walked away from a program I'd spent months preparing for. Victoria drank half her water. Yeah, I'm still processing it. For what it's worth, you were right, about all of it. Being right doesn't make it hurt less. She set down her glass. Do you know what the worst part is? I'm rich enough that I'll be fine. I could never work again and live comfortably. But what about the people who can't afford to tell the truth? The ones who need the job so badly, they'll swallow every humiliation, every stolen credit, every dismissive comment? That's exactly what I want to fix. One executive role won't fix that. No. But it's a start. And I need someone who actually gives a damn about fixing it, not someone who's going to write a nice policy and then ignore it. Ryan leaned against her counter. I'm not asking you to trust that this will work. I'm asking you to help me try. Victoria looked at him for a long time. Then she said, I need 48 hours to think about it. Fair. And I need you to prove you're serious about this, not just guilty over what you saw. How? She pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then turned it toward him. It showed an email thread from March, 6 months ago, where a warehouse supervisor named Maria Gonzalez had filed a complaint about harassment from her manager. The complaint had been forwarded to HR, then disappeared. Find out what happened to Maria, Victoria said. Find out if she still works there, if the manager was disciplined, if anyone followed up. Because if you're serious about culture change, it starts with the people your system already failed. Ryan pulled out his own phone and made a note. I'll have an answer by Monday. Good. Victoria walked him to the door. For the record, Ray the janitor was better company than most CEOs I've met. Ray the janitor didn't have to pretend he had everything figured out. She smiled, small, but genuine. Maybe that's who you should try being more often. Ryan left her apartment with the weight of 2 jobs ahead of him, rebuilding a company culture and proving to Victoria Hale that some things were actually worth fixing. He just hoped he wasn't too late for either. Maria Gonzalez didn't work at Mercer Global anymore. Ryan discovered that fact 20 minutes after leaving Victoria's apartment, sitting in his car with his phone pressed to his ear, while his head of HR stumbled through an explanation that sounded rehearsed. She resigned in April, Sandra Kim said, her voice careful in that way people got when they were choosing words to avoid lawsuits. Personal reasons. What kind of personal reasons? I don't have that information in front of me. Sandra, I'm looking at her complaint right now. Sexual harassment, hostile work environment. She filed it March 15th. She resigned 6 weeks later. What happened in between? Silence on the other end. Then, I'd need to pull the file. Pull it. I want a full report on my desk by Monday morning, and I want to know where Maria Gonzalez is now. Mr. Mercer, if she's no longer an employee, we can't just find her. I need to talk to her. Ryan ended the call before Sandra could offer more excuses. He sat there in the parking garage, expensive car idling, watching rain streak down the windshield. 6 months ago, a woman had asked for help, and the system had swallowed her complaint like it was nothing. She'd probably been pressured to leave quietly, maybe with a settlement that included an NDA. Standard corporate procedure for making problems disappear. Ryan had signed off on dozens of settlements like that over the years, never questioning whether the problems being disappeared were actually the victims being silenced. His phone rang. Marcus. Trevor Collins just called me, his COO said without preamble. He's threatening to sue for wrongful termination. Says you have no grounds to remove him from the program. Tell him to try. I have documentation of IP theft and academic dishonesty. He can explain to a judge why he presented someone else's work as his own. He's saying Victoria gave him permission to present the material. Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. He's lying. I know that, you know that. But his father is Richard Collins. The Richard Collins, venture capital guy who's funded half of Silicon Valley. Trevor's already got lawyers drafting paperwork. Of course he did. People like Trevor always had lawyers and family connections and the absolute certainty that consequences were for other people. Let him sue, Ryan said. I'll bury him in discovery. Ryan. Marcus's voice shifted, concern replacing frustration. What's going on with you? You disappear for a week, come back talking about culture audits and firing executives, and now you're going to war with a trainee whose father could make our fundraising very difficult. Our company culture is broken, Marcus. I spent a week watching it destroy people. You spent a week playing janitor and now you think you understand operational reality? That's not how this works. Ryan felt something snap inside his chest. I understand that we've built a company where talented people get crushed and sociopaths get promoted. I understand that we reward theft and punish integrity. I understand that somewhere along the way, we forgot that the people who work here are actually people and not just resources to optimize. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You sound like Emma. The comparison hit harder than it should have. Emma would have hated what Mercer Global had become. She'd always pushed him to care about more than profit margins, to remember that business was fundamentally about human beings trading value with each other. Maybe I should have listened to her more when she was alive, Ryan said quietly. Maybe. But burning down everything you've built isn't going to bring her back. I'm not trying to bring her back. I'm trying to build something she wouldn't be ashamed of. He ended the call and drove home, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Lily was in the living room when he arrived, doing homework at the coffee table while the nanny supervised from the kitchen. His daughter looked up when he walked in, and for a second, something almost like surprise crossed her face. You're home early, she said. Yeah. Thought maybe we could have dinner together. Lily glanced at the nanny like she needed confirmation that this was real. It's only 4:30. So we'll have early dinner. You pick the place. His daughter studied him with eyes that were too skeptical for an 8-year-old. Are you sick? No. Why? Because you never come home early, and you never let me pick dinner. She said it matter-of-factly, without accusation, which somehow made it worse. Ryan sat down on the couch, suddenly aware of how little he actually knew about his daughter's daily life. What if I'm trying to be better at this? At what? At being your dad. Lily considered this. Then she said, Can we get pizza? Absolutely. And can we not talk about work? That one hit like a knife. Deal. They went to a small Italian place 3 blocks away, the kind of neighborhood restaurant Ryan usually drove past without noticing. Lily ordered pepperoni pizza and spent the first 10 minutes carefully removing individual pieces of pepperoni and eating them separately from the cheese. Why do you order pepperoni if you're just going to take it off? Ryan asked. Because it tastes better when the grease soaks into the cheese first, but I don't like eating them together. That's very specific. Mom taught me. Lily said it casually, but her eyes watched for his reaction. Ryan felt his throat tighten. She had strong opinions about pizza. She had strong opinions about everything. Lily ate another piece of pepperoni. Do you miss her? The question was so direct it knocked the air from his lungs. Every day. You never talk about her. I know, I'm sorry. Why not? Ryan set down his own slice, appetite disappearing. Because talking about her makes it real that she's gone. And sometimes it's easier to just work and not think about it. Lily absorbed this information with the serious expression of a child who'd learned to parent their own parent. That sounds lonely. It is. I talk about her all the time, to my friends, to Mrs. Patterson at school, to the nanny. It helps. Ryan looked at his 8-year-old daughter, and realized she'd figured out something about grief that he'd been avoiding for years. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just haven't been home enough to notice." The truth of it settled over the table like a weight. Ryan had been so focused on building a financial legacy that he'd missed the actual human being who needed him present, not just wealthy. "I'm going to do better," he said. "I know I've said that before, but this time I mean it." Lily ate another piece of pepperoni, considering. "You said that after you missed my birthday last year, and after you forgot the parent-teacher conference, and after you didn't come to my dance recital." Each example landed like a blow. "I know. So why should I believe you this time?" Ryan didn't have a good answer. Promises were cheap. Lily had learned that the hard way. "I don't know if you should," he admitted, "but I'm asking you to let me try anyway." His daughter looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay, but if you miss my science fair presentation next month, I'm going to be really mad." "When's the science fair?" "November 10th. It's about plant growth and different types of soil. I have a whole poster." Ryan pulled out his phone and put it in his calendar, then showed her the screen. "November 10th. I'll be there." Lily smiled, small, cautious, but real. "Okay." They finished dinner talking about school and friends and a book series Lily was obsessed with that Ryan had never heard of. For the first time in months, maybe years, he felt like he was actually seeing his daughter, instead of just existing in the same space as her. When they got home, Lily hugged him goodnight, something she hadn't done in so long that Ryan almost forgot how. "Thanks for dinner, Dad." "Thanks for giving me another chance." After she went to bed, Ryan sat in his home office and pulled up Maria Gonzalez's employment file. Sandra had emailed it over with a note that said only, "as requested." The file told a story Ryan had seen too many times to pretend he didn't recognize it. Maria had worked in the warehouse division for 6 years, excellent performance reviews, multiple commendations for reliability and leadership. In March, she'd filed a complaint against her supervisor, Dennis Crawford, alleging repeated inappropriate comments, unwanted touching, and retaliation when she'd asked him to stop. HR had conducted an investigation that consisted of interviewing Dennis and 2 of his friends, who all said Maria was lying. There was no follow-up with other warehouse staff, no review of security footage, no real attempt to verify her claims. The file showed 3 meetings between Maria and HR over the next month. Each time, the notes used words like emotional, unclear about timeline, and possibly misinterpreting friendly behavior. Maria had resigned April 28th. The exit interview noted pursuing other opportunities. There was a settlement agreement for $40,000 in exchange for signing an NDA and releasing all claims. Dennis Crawford still worked there. In fact, he'd been promoted to warehouse manager in June. Ryan closed the file and sat in the dark, feeling sick. This was what Victoria had been trying to tell him. The culture didn't just tolerate this behavior, it rewarded it. Dennis got promoted. Maria got paid to disappear quietly, and nobody at the executive level ever asked if maybe the system was broken. He picked up his phone and called Jerome. "Mr. Mercer, it's almost 10 p.m. I need a favor. Do you know anyone who worked with Maria Gonzalez in the warehouse division?" Jerome was quiet for a moment. "Maria was good people. What happened to her was wrong." "So you know the story." "Everyone in the warehouse knows the story. Dennis Crawford is a predator. He's harassed at least 3 other women that I know of, but he's buddies with the regional manager, so nothing ever happens." "Not anymore. I need contact information for Maria if you can get it. And I need names of the other women Dennis harassed." "Why?" "Because I'm going to fix this, and I need victims willing to talk." Jerome sighed. "I can make some calls, but these women were scared enough to stay quiet once. You think they're going to trust the CEO who let it happen in the first place?" "Probably not, but I have to try." By Monday morning, Ryan had a list of 5 names: Maria Gonzalez, Jennifer Liu, Samantha Torres, Nicole Washington, Keisha Brown, 5 women who'd been harassed by Dennis Crawford over the past 4 years. 2 had quit. 1 had transferred to a different facility. 2 still worked in the warehouse, avoiding night shifts when Dennis was on duty. Ryan called an emergency meeting with Sandra Kim and the legal team. "Dennis Crawford is terminated, effective immediately," he said without preamble. And I want a full audit of every harassment complaint filed in the past 5 years, every single one that was dismissed or settled quietly. Sandra's face went pale. Mr. Mercer, if we reopen settled complaints, we could expose the company to massive liability. We're already exposed. We just paid people to stay quiet about it. Ryan slid a folder across the table. This is what systematic failure looks like. 5 women, 4 years, 1 predator who kept getting promoted because nobody in leadership cared enough to actually investigate. The head of legal, Thomas Brighton, cleared his throat. With respect, reopening these cases could cost us millions in settlements. Good. Maybe financial consequences will teach us to actually address problems instead of burying them. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to contact every woman Dennis Crawford harassed. We're going to apologize. We're going to offer them their jobs back if they want them, with back pay for time they lost. And we're going to implement a new reporting system where harassment complaints go to an external third party, not internal HR. That's going to be very expensive, Thomas said carefully. So is the lawsuit we'll face when this goes public because we didn't fix it? Ryan met his eyes. And make no mistake, it will go public. Either we control the narrative by taking responsibility, or someone else controls it by exposing our negligence. I'd rather own our failures than have them exposed. Sandra shifted uncomfortably. What about the NDAs? We'll release anyone who wants to be released. If they want to talk publicly about what happened, they have that right. Mr. Mercer, I strongly advise against Heiress. Your advice is noted. Do it anyway. After the meeting, Ryan went to the warehouse. He'd been there dozens of times as CEO, always in a suit, always surrounded by managers performing competence for his benefit. This time, he went alone, dressed casually, and asked for the shift supervisor. The woman who approached was in her 40s, wearing a Mercer Global uniform and an expression of deep suspicion. You're Ryan Mercer. I am. You're Angela Rodriguez? I am. What do you want? Her directness was refreshing. I want to talk about Dennis Crawford. Angela's expression hardened. He's gone. Jerome told us this morning. He is, and I want to make sure nothing like this happens again. Ryan gestured to the break room. Can we talk? Angela studied him like she was trying to determine whether this was a trap. Then she nodded. They sat at a worn plastic table while warehouse staff moved around them, shooting curious glances at the CEO sitting in their break room. Maria was my friend, Angela said without preamble. She reported Dennis 3 times. HR did nothing. Then they made her feel crazy for speaking up. She took the settlement because she needed money and couldn't afford to keep fighting. I know. I read the file. Then you know your company failed her. I know I failed her. This happened on my watch. I signed off on systems that protected predators and punished victims. Ryan met her eyes. I'm trying to fix that, but I need help. Why should we help you? Why should we trust that this time is different? It was the same question Lily had asked. The same question Victoria would probably ask. You shouldn't, Ryan said. I haven't earned that trust. All I can do is show you that I'm serious about change and hope that's enough. Angela was quiet for a moment. What do you want from us? I want to know what else is broken, what other policies protect the wrong people, what other complaints get buried. I want you and your team to tell me the truth, even when it makes me uncomfortable. You're going to hear a lot of things that make you uncomfortable. Good. Comfortable is how we got here. Angela studied him, then called over another woman who'd been watching from the doorway. This is Nicole Washington. She still works here, and she has things to say. Nicole sat down slowly, her body language screaming that she didn't trust this situation. Dennis grabbed me in the supply room, she said, voice flat. I reported it. HR said I was being too sensitive, that he was just being friendly. When I pushed back, my hours got cut. I'm sorry, Ryan said. That should never have happened. Sorry doesn't pay my bills. No, but back pay and a formal apology might help. And firing the people who dismissed your complaint definitely will. Nicole's eyes narrowed. You're going to fire HR? I'm going to fire anyone who prioritized protecting the company's reputation over protecting employees. That includes HR staff who dismissed valid complaints. For the first time, something that might have been hope flickered across Nicole's face. You mean that? I do. But I need your help. I need you and anyone else Dennis hurt to tell me exactly what happened. No NDAs, no legal pressure, just the truth. Angela and Nicole exchanged glances. There's a group of us, Angela said slowly. Women Dennis harassed. Women other managers harassed. We have a group chat where we warn each other about who to avoid. There's probably 30 of us. 30. Ryan felt sick. I want to meet with all of you, hear everything, and I want to hire an external firm to investigate every claim. No internal HR involvement. And if the investigation proves we're telling the truth, then the people who hurt you are gone, and the people who enabled it are held accountable. Nicole leaned forward. What about the people who reported it and got ignored? What about the managers who saw it happening and did nothing? Everyone who failed you faces consequences. I can't undo what happened, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again. Angela pulled out her phone. I'm going to talk to the group. If they want to meet with you, I'll let you know. Thank you. Don't thank us yet. You haven't heard the stories. Ryan left the warehouse with a weight in his chest that felt like it might never lift. 30 women. 30 people who'd been hurt while he was upstairs in his office approving quarterly projections and acquisition strategies, completely oblivious to the cruelty happening under his own roof. That afternoon, he called Victoria. I found Maria Gonzalez, he said, and 4 other women Dennis Crawford harassed, and 25 more who've been harassed by other managers we never held accountable. Victoria was quiet on the other end. Then, tell me you fired him. This morning, and I'm meeting with all 30 women to hear their stories. I hired an external investigation firm, and I'm firing every HR person who dismissed valid complaints. That's a good start. It's not enough. No, but it's more than most CEOs would do. Victoria paused. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked me to prove I was serious. This is me proving it. By blowing up your HR department. By doing what I should have done years ago. Listening to the people this company failed. Another pause. Then Victoria said, I'll take the job. Ryan felt relief wash over him. Yeah? On one condition, I want to be part of these meetings. I want to hear what those women went through, because if I'm going to help you fix this culture, I need to understand how broken it is. Done. The first meeting is Wednesday afternoon. I'll be there. Victoria's voice softened slightly. Ryan? Yeah? This is going to get worse before it gets better. People are going to resist. Executives are going to push back. You're going to face pressure to back down and return to comfortable ignorance. I know. Are you ready for that? Ryan thought about Maria Gonzalez taking a settlement because she couldn't afford to keep fighting, about Nicole Washington getting her hours cut for speaking up, about 30 women creating a group chat to warn each other about predators because the official system had failed them. I don't have a choice, he said. This is what leadership actually looks like. I've been avoiding it for years. Time to grow up. Victoria laughed, soft, almost surprised. Okay then, I'll see you Wednesday. That night, Ryan sat down with Lily for dinner again. They ordered Chinese food and ate it straight from the containers while Lily told him about a friend drama at school that involved someone taking someone else's favorite pencil. So what did you do? Ryan asked. I told them they needed to talk it out instead of just being mad. Mom always said talking was better than staying angry. Your mom was right about a lot of things. Lily picked at her fried rice. Do you think she'd be proud of you? For what you're doing at work? Ryan's throat tightened. I think she'd say it's about time. But proud? He thought about Emma, who'd always pushed him to care about more than profit, who'd volunteered at shelters and community centers and believed that success meant nothing if you weren't making the world better. Maybe. If I actually follow through. You will, Lily said with the absolute certainty of a child who'd decided to believe in something. You promised me you'd be at my science fair, and you will. And you promised those women you'd fix things, and you will. How do you know? Because you look different now, like you're actually here instead of just thinking about work all the time. She smiled. I like this version of you better. Ryan reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Me too, kiddo. Me too. Wednesday afternoon arrived with the weight of 30 untold stories. Ryan had reserved a large conference room off-site, neutral ground where the women wouldn't feel like they were walking into the building that had failed them. Victoria arrived early, dressed professionally but simply, her bandaged hand from the gala now healed. "Ready for this?" she asked. "No, but that's not a reason not to do it." The women arrived in clusters. Some came alone. Some brought friends for support. Angela Rodriguez introduced them, and Ryan shook each hand, thanked them for coming, and felt the weight of their collective skepticism. When everyone was seated, he stood at the front of the room. "My name is Ryan Mercer. I'm the CEO of Mercer Global, and I'm the reason all of you are here today." He took a breath. "Not because I called this meeting. Because I built a company culture that hurt you, that ignored you when you asked for help, that protected the people who harmed you and punished you for speaking up. This is my failure, and I'm here to listen to what that failure cost you." The room was silent. Then Maria Gonzalez stood up. She was younger than Ryan expected, maybe 28, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that had seen too much. "I worked for your company for 6 years, she said. "I loved my job. I was good at it. And then Dennis Crawford decided I was supposed to be grateful for his attention. When I wasn't, he made my life hell. I reported it 3 times. Each time, HR made me feel like I was the problem, like I was too sensitive, too emotional, too difficult. So I took the money and left because I couldn't afford to fight anymore." She sat down. Another woman stood, then another. Story after story of harassment, retaliation, and systematic dismissal. 30 women who'd been brave enough to speak up and then punished for it. Ryan listened to every word. He didn't interrupt, didn't defend, didn't offer excuses. He just listened. Victoria sat beside him, taking notes, her expression growing harder with each story. When the last woman finished, Ryan stood again. "Thank you," he said, voice rough. "Thank you for trusting me with this. I can't undo what happened, but I can promise you this. Every person who harassed you is going to be investigated. Every manager who enabled it will be held accountable. Every HR person who dismissed you will face consequences. And we're implementing a new system where complaints go to an external party that has no incentive to protect the company over protecting you." "That's what you say now," one woman called out. "What happens in 6 months when this is expensive and inconvenient?" "Then I keep doing it anyway, because this is what leadership actually means." "Words are easy," Angela said. "Prove it." "I will. Starting with this. Anyone who wants their job back can have it, with full back pay and a formal apology. Anyone who wants to speak publicly about what happened will be released from their NDA. And anyone who wants to be part of redesigning our harassment policies is welcome to join the committee." The women looked at each other, weighing his words against their experiences. Finally, Maria spoke again. "I want my job back, but not in the warehouse. I want to work in operations, because I have ideas about how to fix the reporting system, and I'm tired of watching other women go through what I went through." Ryan nodded. "Done. Victoria will work with you directly." One by one, other women spoke up. Some wanted their jobs back. Some wanted to consult on policy changes. Some just wanted acknowledgement that what had happened to them was real and wrong. Ryan gave them all of it. When the meeting ended 3 hours later, he felt hollowed out and somehow more solid at the same time. Victoria walked out with him, quiet until they reached his car. "That was brutal," she said finally. "That was necessary. Your executives are going to hate this. The board is going to push back. You're going to face enormous pressure to back down." "Let them try." Ryan unlocked his car. "I'm done building a company I'm ashamed of." Victoria smiled, small but real. "Then I guess we're doing this." "We're doing this." She got into her own car and Ryan drove back to the office, where a dozen fires were probably waiting for him. But for the first time in years, he felt like he was actually building something instead of just maintaining it. His phone rang. "Marcus, the board wants an emergency meeting. They heard about the harassment investigation and the reinstatements. Richard Collins is making noise about pulling funding, and Jennifer Hamilton just resigned." Ryan felt a grim satisfaction at that last part. "Good, let her go. Anyone else want to leave rather than face accountability?" "Ryan, you're blowing up the entire executive structure. I'm removing the parts that were broken. We'll rebuild with better pieces." "That's not how business works." "Then maybe we've been doing business wrong." He ended the call and kept driving, knowing that the real fight was just beginning but finally ready to actually fight it. The board meeting happened on a Thursday morning that felt like walking into an ambush. Ryan arrived early, Victoria beside him carrying a tablet loaded with documentation they'd spent the past week compiling. The conference room on the 48th floor was already half full, board members in expensive suits, looking at their phones with expressions that ranged from concern to openly hostile. Richard Collins sat at the far end of the table, silver-haired and radiating the kind of power that came from controlling billions in venture capital. Trevor's father. Ryan had met him twice before at fundraising events, both times finding him charming in the way poisonous things often were. "Ryan," Richard's voice carried across the room, "glad you could make it to your own intervention." "This isn't an intervention, Richard. It's a board meeting. Semantics." Richard gestured to an empty chair. "Sit. We have concerns." Ryan remained standing. Victoria took a seat along the wall, visible but not at the table, exactly as they'd planned. Marcus entered last, looking exhausted and worried. He caught Ryan's eye with an expression that clearly said, "This is going to be bad." David Park called the meeting to order. "We're here to discuss recent operational decisions that have raised significant concerns among board members and major investors. Ryan, would you like to explain why you've chosen to destabilize the company at a critical growth phase?" "I wouldn't call firing sexual harassers destabilizing the company. I'd call it basic decency." "You fired Dennis Crawford without consulting the board," one of the other board members, Patricia Yang, said sharply. "You've threatened to terminate multiple HR staff. You've offered reinstatement to former employees who signed NDAs. And you've hired an external investigation firm that's costing us 6 figures before we even know what they'll find." "I know what they'll find. I already found it. 30 women harassed, dozens of complaints dismissed, a systematic pattern of protecting predators and punishing victims." Ryan pulled up a presentation on the screen. "This is what our culture looks like when you actually examine it, instead of just approving sanitized reports." The screen filled with complaint summaries, timeline graphs, and damning email chains showing HR staff coordinating to dismiss allegations. "This is cherry-picked data," Richard said dismissively. "Every large company has disgruntled employees who make accusations. You can't run a business by investigating every complaint like it's a criminal case. These aren't disgruntled employees. These are women who were harassed and then retaliated against when they reported it." Allegedly harassed. Allegedly retaliated against. Richard leaned back in his chair. "You're treating accusations as facts and destroying careers based on one-sided stories." Victoria stood up from her seat along the wall. "May I speak?" she asked. David frowned. "You're not on the board, Ms. Hale." "No, but I'm the new VP of Strategic Operations, and I have relevant information." Richard's eyes narrowed. "Victoria Hale. I heard Trevor mention you. You're the trainee who had a breakdown at the networking event." "I'm the trainee whose work Trevor stole and presented as his own. Would you like to see the documentation?" The temperature in the room dropped. Victoria walked to the front and connected her own tablet to the screen. Side-by-side documents appeared. Her original analysis with timestamps, Trevor's presentation slides using identical language and frameworks, email exchanges showing him requesting her files under the guise of collaboration. "Your son is a thief," Victoria said calmly. "He stole intellectual property, presented it as his own work, and when I objected, I was labeled unstable and pushed out of the program. That's the culture you're defending." Richard's face went red. "That's a serious accusation. It's a documented fact. I have version histories, email chains, and testimony from other trainees who watched it happen." Victoria clicked through more evidence. "But the theft isn't even the worst part. The worst part is that your company's leadership saw it happening and decided I was the problem for speaking up." "You made a scene at a professional event," Patricia interjected. "That reflects poorly on your judgment." "I made a scene after exhausting every appropriate channel. I tried addressing it privately with Trevor, dismissed. I tried bringing it up in team meetings, talked over. I tried reporting it to Monica Graves, told to be a team player." Victoria's voice stayed level, but her eyes were steel. "So I said it publicly, and suddenly everyone was concerned about professionalism, not about theft, not about a toxic culture, about appearances." Ryan watched the board members shift uncomfortably. "The point," he said, "is that this company has been rewarding the wrong behaviors and punishing the right ones. We promote people like Trevor Collins because they look confident and make powerful people feel smart. We push out people like Victoria because they actually care about integrity. Integrity doesn't pay dividends, Richard snapped. Performance does. Results do. Your father understood that. The mention of Ryan's father was a calculated jab. Michael Mercer had built a small regional logistics company through aggressive expansion and cutthroat competition. He died when Ryan was 25, leaving him a business that was profitable but brutal. Ryan had spent 7 years trying to grow it into something bigger. He'd never questioned whether he should also make it something better. My father also died of a heart attack at 57 because he never learned that destroying yourself for profit wasn't success. It was just expensive suicide, Ryan said quietly. I'm not interested in repeating his mistakes. So instead you're going to tank the company with bleeding heart reforms? Richard stood up. Let me be very clear, Ryan. I represent 15% of your Series B funding. I have relationships with every major investor in this sector. If you continue down this path, I will make it my personal mission to ensure you never raise another dollar. Then do it. I'd rather build something smaller that I'm proud of than something massive that destroys people. This is insane, Patricia said. Ryan, you're letting emotion cloud your judgment. I'm letting humanity inform my decisions. There's a difference. Marcus finally spoke up. Ryan, I understand you want to address cultural issues, but Richard's right that timing matters. We're in the middle of expansion talks with 3 European partners. If we're publicly fighting over harassment scandals and executive terminations, those deals disappear. Good. Those partners only want to work with us when we're hiding our problems. I don't want their business. That's $250 million in potential revenue you're willing to walk away from, David said, disbelief clear in his voice. I'm willing to walk away from anything built on a foundation of hurting people. Richard laughed, sharp and derisive. You sound like a child playing businessman. This is the real world, Ryan. Companies don't succeed by being nice, they succeed by being effective. Define effective. Because from where I'm standing, we've been hemorrhaging talent for years. Our turnover rate in warehouse operations is 42% annually. Our employee satisfaction scores are in the bottom quartile of the industry. We spend millions on recruitment because we can't retain good people. Ryan pulled up more data. You want to talk about performance? Our culture is actively destroying our performance. We just can't see it because we're too busy measuring quarterly profits instead of long-term sustainability. Victoria added, I've analyzed 5 years of operational data. Every department with high harassment complaints also has high turnover, low productivity, and increased safety incidents. The cost of maintaining a toxic culture is massive. We just hide it in different budget lines so nobody connects the dots. She clicked through charts showing the correlations. Departments led by managers with multiple complaints had productivity 30% lower than departments with clean records. Turnover costs alone exceeded $8 million annually. This isn't bleeding heart reform, Victoria concluded. This is basic operational efficiency. Bad culture is expensive. Patricia studied the charts, her expression shifting from hostile to thoughtful. Why haven't we seen this analysis before? Because nobody asked for it, Ryan said. We've been so focused on short-term gains that we never examined long-term costs. I don't care about your charts, Richard interrupted. I care about my son's reputation. You've publicly accused him of theft. You've removed him from your program. You've damaged his professional credibility. That has consequences. Your son stole someone else's work. That has consequences too. Prove it in court then, because Trevor's lawyers are filing a defamation suit by end of business today. Ryan pulled out his phone and made a call, putting it on speaker. Thomas, are you ready? Thomas Brighton's voice came through clearly. Documentation is prepared. If Trevor Collins files suit, we'll countersue for IP theft and fraud. We have multiple witnesses and documentary evidence. He's a trainee, Richard said tightly. You can't claim IP ownership over trainee work. Actually, Victoria said, trainee agreements specify that work developed during the program belongs to the individual, not the company. Trevor signed that agreement. Then he stole my individual work. That's actionable fraud. Richard's confident expression cracked slightly. Ryan ended the call. So yes, let Trevor sue. We'll bury him in discovery. But I suspect he won't because his lawyers will explain that he doesn't have a case. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Patricia spoke. I want to see the full cultural audit, not summaries, not sanitized reports, everything. You'll have it by Monday, Ryan promised. And I want quarterly updates on culture metrics, turnover, satisfaction, harassment complaints, investigation outcomes. If we're going to make this shift, I want transparency. Done. David looked like he was going to argue, then sighed. I think Ryan's approach is reckless, but I'll admit the data is concerning. I'll abstain from voting against the reforms for now. Two other board members nodded agreement. Richard stood abruptly. This is a mistake. You're prioritizing feelings over results, and it's going to destroy everything you've built. When this company collapses under the weight of your idealism, don't expect me to help pick up the pieces. I won't, Ryan said. I expect you to resign from the board, because if you can't support a company that values integrity, then you don't belong here. Richard's face went purple. You can't force me off this board. I'm not forcing anything. I'm asking you to make a choice. Stay and support the direction we're going, or leave because you can't. But you don't get to stay and sabotage us from the inside. You'll regret this. Probably. But I'll regret it less than I regret spending years ignoring problems because it was easier than fixing them. Richard grabbed his briefcase and walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. The remaining board members sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Marcus spoke. Well, that went great. Could have been worse, Ryan said. How? He could have flipped the table. Victoria smiled despite herself. The meeting adjourned with a fragile agreement. Ryan could continue the cultural reforms, but he had to provide transparent reporting and demonstrate that the changes were improving operational performance, not just making people feel good. After everyone left, Victoria and Ryan stood alone in the empty conference room. You just made a very powerful enemy, she said. I made that enemy the second I fired his son. Everything after was just confirmation. He's going to come after you, use his network to undermine us, pressure investors, poison relationships. Let him try. I'm done making decisions based on fear of powerful people being angry. Victoria leaned against the table. You know, when I first met you in that hallway, I thought you were just a kind janitor who'd been beaten down by the system. Now I'm watching you burn that system to the ground. Which version is more accurate? Both, probably. Most people are more than one thing. She studied him. Are you scared? Terrified. But fear isn't a good reason to avoid doing the right thing. No, but it's a realistic reason to proceed carefully. Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Don't forget you promised to help me practice my presentation tonight. He smiled and showed Victoria the screen. My daughter's science fair is in 3 weeks. She's been reminding me daily. Smart kid, knows you need accountability. She learned the hard way that my promises don't always mean much. I'm trying to change that. Victoria's expression softened. How old is she? 8. Too young to have a father who's never around and too smart to be fooled by excuses. Emma's daughter. Ryan nodded. She has her mother's eyes and her mother's ability to see through my nonsense. I'd like to meet her sometime, if that's appropriate. Why wouldn't it be appropriate? Because I'm your employee, and there are boundaries. Ryan considered that. Are we friends, Victoria? She seemed surprised by the question. I don't know. Are we? I'd like to be. I don't have many people in my life who tell me when I'm being an idiot. You have an 8-year-old daughter who seems very good at that. True. But she can't legally drink, so she's limited in her ability to commiserate about board meetings. Victoria laughed, real and unguarded. Okay, we're friends, but I'm still going to call you out when you're making bad decisions. That's the job description. They left the building together, and Ryan realized it was only 3 in the afternoon. Usually by this time he'd have been in back-to-back meetings until midnight. Now he had the rest of the day free because he'd canceled everything to focus on what actually mattered. Want to get coffee? Victoria asked. I need to debrief about that disaster before I go back to analyzing warehouse logistics. That wasn't a disaster. That was a necessary explosion. Potato, potato. They went to a small cafe 2 blocks from the office, the kind of place Ryan had walked past 1,000 times without noticing. Victoria ordered something complicated with oat milk and vanilla. Ryan got black coffee and immediately regretted it when he tasted how good hers smelled. You can admit you made the wrong choice, Victoria said, reading his expression. I'm the CEO. I don't admit mistakes. That's exactly the attitude we're trying to fix. Ryan smiled and flagged down the barista to order what Victoria had. When it arrived, he had to admit it was significantly better than black coffee. "See," Victoria said. "Progress." They sat by the window watching Chicago move past in its usual hurried way. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said. "Depends on the question. Why did you really join the trainee program? The real reason, not the official one." Victoria was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee. "My mother built an empire, hotel properties across the country, investment portfolios, charitable foundations. And every step of the way, men told her she was lucky to have inherited it from my grandfather. Never mind that she grew revenue 400%. Never mind that she completely restructured the business model. She was just the pretty heiress who got lucky. That must have been frustrating. It destroyed her. Not the comments themselves, but the constant need to prove herself over and over to people who'd already decided she didn't deserve her success." Victoria looked up. "When she died, I inherited everything. And I knew exactly what people would say, that I was lucky, that I hadn't earned it, that I was just another rich girl playing businesswoman." "So you wanted to prove them wrong." "I wanted to prove it to myself, that I was actually competent, that I could succeed in an environment where nobody knew my name or my money." She smiled sadly. "Turns out competence isn't enough when the system is designed to reward performance over substance." "Is that what you think happened at Mercer Global?" "I think I was very good at my job. And it didn't matter because Trevor was better at looking like he was good at his job. And I think that's a problem that's bigger than your company or my insecurity." Ryan thought about that. "I built a company that values the appearance of competence over actual competence. That's on me. It's on everyone who participated in the system and never questioned it." "Including you?" Victoria raised an eyebrow. "How am I complicit?" "You hid who you really were. You knew the system was biased, so you tried to game it by pretending to be someone else. That's not challenging the system. That's accommodating it." She looked stung. "I was trying to level the playing field by lying about who you were, which meant when Trevor stole your work, you couldn't even defend yourself properly without revealing you'd been hiding your background." Victoria set down her coffee cup hard enough that it rattled. "That's not fair." "No, but it's accurate." They sat in tense silence. Then Victoria said, "You're right. I was so focused on proving I didn't need my family name that I gave up the one advantage that might have protected me. If people had known I was Victoria Hale, the hotel heiress, Trevor probably wouldn't have dared steal from me." "Maybe. Or maybe the system would have found a different way to dismiss you. Rich girl doesn't understand real work, etc." "So what's the answer? Use my privilege or hide it? Either way, I lose." "The answer is fixing a system where your identity matters more than your competence, which is what we're trying to do." Ryan leaned back in his chair. "But we're both going to screw it up along the way, because we're products of the broken system trying to fix it from the inside." That's depressingly realistic. Welcome to actual change. It's messy and imperfect, and everyone involved is kind of a disaster. Victoria smiled despite herself. "You're weirdly honest for a CEO." "I spent a week pretending to be someone else and learned that honesty is the only thing that actually matters. Everything else is just performance." His phone rang. "Marcus, I'm getting calls from 3 different investors who heard about the board meeting," his COO said without preamble. "They're concerned about instability. Tell them we're addressing long-ignored problems. If that makes them uncomfortable, they can divest." "Ryan, we can't afford to lose investors right now." "Yes, we can. We're profitable. We have cash reserves. We're not dying if a few investors get scared off by accountability. Richard Collins is making calls. He's telling people you've lost perspective and are running the company based on emotions instead of strategy. He's partly right. I did lose perspective. I lost it years ago when I stopped seeing employees as people. Now I'm getting it back." Marcus sighed heavily. "You're going to make my job very difficult." "Yep. But it'll be meaningful difficulty instead of meaningless maintenance." After he hung up, Victoria said, "You're really okay with losing investors?" "I'm okay with losing investors who only care about profit and don't care how we generate it. We'll find better partners." "That's optimistic." "That's necessary." Ryan checked his watch. "I need to get home. Lily's expecting me at 5, and I've already broken enough promises to her." Victoria stood with him. "Thank you for fighting this. A lot of CEOs would have backed down when Richard threatened to pull funding. A lot of CEOs probably aren't trying to prove to their 8-year-old daughter that promises mean something. They walked back toward the office building where their cars were parked. The afternoon had turned gray and cold, typical Chicago autumn weather that made everything feel slightly urgent. "Victoria?" Ryan said as they reached the parking garage. "Yeah? I'm glad you took the job, and I'm glad we're friends. I don't say that enough to people." She smiled. "You're getting soft in your old age." "I'm 32. Like I said, old age." Ryan laughed and headed home, arriving at 5:03 to find Lily waiting by the window. "You're late," she said when he walked in. 3 minutes. Traffic." "Still late." "You're right. I'm sorry. Won't happen again." Lily studied him with those too perceptive eyes. "You had a bad day." "Why do you think that?" "Because you look tired and you're apologizing too much. You always apologize more when work is hard." Ryan sat down on the couch. "When did you become a psychologist?" "I'm 8. I've had a lot of time to study you." Lily sat beside him. "Want to talk about it?" The role reversal was painful and sweet at the same time. "I had to make some people angry today to do the right thing." "Were they mean people?" "Some of them. Some of them were just people who didn't want things to change." Lily considered this. "Mom used to say that change is hard but necessary, like when I didn't want to stop using training wheels on my bike." "Your mom was very smart." "I know, she told me to remind you of that when you forgot." Lily pulled out her science fair poster, a detailed comparison of plant growth in different soil types. "Ready to practice?" They spent the next hour rehearsing her presentation. Lily was thorough and passionate about her research in a way that reminded Ryan painfully of Emma. His wife had been like that, fully committed to whatever she cared about, whether it was a charity project or teaching Lily to ride a bike. "You're really good at this," Ryan said when she finished her third run-through. "I know. I'm going to win." "That's very confident." "That's accurate. Jenny Morrison's project is about volcanoes, but she just copied stuff from the internet. Mine is actual research." "Where did you learn to call out plagiarism?" Lily gave him a look. "I pay attention. You were talking about some guy named Trevor who stole someone's work. It's the same thing." Ryan felt a surge of pride. "You're right. It is the same thing. So what happened to Trevor?" "He got fired." "Good. Thieves should face consequences." Lily gathered up her materials. "Are you going to come to the science fair? Actually come, not just say you will and then miss it?" "I'll be there, front row." "You better be. Because if you're not, I'm going to be really mad. And then I'm going to tell Victoria that you broke your promise, and she'll be mad at you too." Ryan blinked. "How do you know about Victoria?" "You've mentioned her like 8 times this week, and you smile different when you talk about her." "I do not smile different." "You do. It's the same smile you had in pictures with Mom. The real one, not the work one." Ryan didn't know what to say to that. His 8-year-old daughter had just casually observed something he hadn't even admitted to himself yet. "Victoria's my friend," he said carefully, "and my employee." "Can't she be both?" "I guess so." "Good, because you need more friends. You only have Marcus, and he's boring." "Marcus is my COO." "Like I said, boring." Lily headed toward her room. "I'm going to read before bed. Don't forget to eat dinner." "Yes, ma'am." Ryan sat alone in the living room after she left, thinking about his daughter's observation. He did smile different when he talked about Victoria, because Victoria made him feel like he could actually fix things instead of just maintaining broken systems. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Maria Gonzalez and 3 other women want to join the Policy Reform Committee. They're drafting proposals for the new harassment reporting system." Ryan typed back. "That's excellent. Set up a meeting for next week." Victoria. "Already done. Also, I told HR that if they try to intimidate any of these women, I'll personally ensure everyone involved is fired. Was that overstepping?" Ryan smiled. The real smile, apparently, not the work one. "That was perfect." Victoria. "Good. Now go spend time with your daughter and stop checking work messages." Ryan. "How did you know I was checking messages?" Victoria. "Because you're you, and I'm learning your patterns." He put the phone down and went to make dinner. Actual dinner, not takeout. Pasta with vegetables, something Emma used to make that Lily loved. His daughter came out of her room when she smelled food cooking. "You're cooking," she said, surprised. "I'm trying to cook. Jury's still out on whether it's edible." They ate together at the kitchen table, and Lily talked about school and friends and a book series she was reading. Ryan listened, actually listened, instead of nodding while thinking about work. Later, after Lily was asleep, he sat at his desk and pulled up the operational reports Victoria had been compiling. The data was damning and hopeful at the same time. Damning because it showed just how broken things were. Hopeful because it proved that fixing the culture would actually improve performance. He thought about Richard Collins's threat to pull funding and tank their investor relationships. About the board members who thought he was being too emotional. About all the people who'd built careers on the old system and didn't want to see it change. Then he thought about 30 women who'd been brave enough to speak up, despite knowing the system would punish them. About Victoria kneeling to clean broken glass while executives watched. About Lily asking him to prove that promises meant something. The choice was simple, really. He could build something he was ashamed of but profitable, or something he was proud of that might fail. Emma would have known which one to choose without hesitation. Ryan pulled up his email and started writing to the entire company. Not a sanitized PR message, but an honest acknowledgement of everything that was broken and a commitment to fix it. The email was raw and imperfect, and probably too honest for corporate communications. He sent it anyway. Then he closed his laptop and went to bed, ready for whatever fire awaited him in the morning, but finally certain he was fighting for something that actually mattered. The email hit every employee inbox at 6:47 a.m., which meant Ryan's phone started ringing at 6:53. He was making breakfast for Lily when Marcus called for the third time. Ryan ignored it and flipped a pancake that was slightly burnt on one side. "That one's crispy," Lily observed from the table. Crispy is a generous word for "I wasn't paying attention." "You can give me that one. I like crispy." Ryan slid the imperfect pancake onto her plate, and his daughter attacked it with syrup while his phone continued buzzing across the counter. 7 calls now. Then 8. "Someone really wants to talk to you," Lily said through a mouthful of pancake. "Someone's probably mad about the email I sent last night." "What email?" "I told the whole company that we've been doing things wrong and we're going to fix it." Lily considered this while chewing. People don't usually like being told they're wrong. No, they really don't. But you told them anyway. Because it was true. And because your science fair is in 2 weeks, and I need to prove to you that I can actually follow through on things. So you made people mad to prove something to me? I made people mad to fix something broken. But yeah, you're part of why I care about fixing it. Lily smiled and went back to her pancakes. Ryan's phone hit 12 missed calls. He finally answered when Marcus called for the 13th time. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" his COO said without preamble. "Sent an honest email about company culture? You've created a PR nightmare." That email went to 4,000 employees. By 7 a.m., it was screenshot and posted on 6 different industry forums. By 7:30, 3 journalists had called asking for comment about the harassment scandal you just publicly acknowledged. Ryan poured himself coffee. "Good. Transparency is part of the fix." "Transparency is a liability. We have investors threatening to pull out, clients asking if we're stable, and the board is demanding another emergency meeting. Tell the board I'll meet them Monday. Tell investors they're welcome to leave if accountability scares them. And tell the journalists I'm available for interviews starting next week." Silence on the other end. Then, "You're serious?" "Completely." "Ryan, you're committing corporate suicide." "I'm committing to honesty. If that kills the company, then the company deserved to die." He hung up and turned to find Lily watching him with concerned eyes. "Are you going to lose your job?" she asked quietly. "Maybe. Would that be okay?" "I don't know. Would you be sad?" Ryan sat down across from her. "I'd be sad about some parts, but I think I'd also be relieved, because I've been doing a job I'm not proud of for a long time. But if you lose your job, we can't afford this apartment. We'd be fine. I have savings, and I could find a different job doing something better." Lily pushed pancake pieces around her plate. "Would you have more time for my science fair stuff?" "Definitely. Then maybe losing your job wouldn't be the worst thing." Ryan felt his chest tighten. His 8-year-old daughter would rather have a father with time than a father with money. Emma would have said the same thing. "I'm not going to lose my job," he said. But if I do, we'll figure it out together. Okay? Okay. Lily finished her pancake. Can Victoria come to my science fair? I don't know. Why? Because you like her, and she sounds nice, and I want to meet someone who makes you smile the real way. Ryan didn't know what to say to that, so he just agreed to ask. By the time he dropped Lily at school and arrived at the office, the building felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. Employees clustered in hallways, talking in low voices. Some looked angry, some looked relieved, most just looked confused. Jerome caught him at the elevator. That was quite an email, Mr. Mercer. Too much? Too honest for corporate America. Which means it was exactly right. Jerome handed him a folded piece of paper. The night cleaning crew wanted me to give you this. Ryan unfolded it. A handwritten note signed by 11 people. Thank you for seeing us. We've been invisible for years. He had to look away for a second to keep his composure. Tell them I'm sorry it took so long, he managed. Tell them yourself. They're people, not furniture. Talk to them. Jerome was right. Ryan made a note to schedule time with every operational team he'd been ignoring for years. Victoria was waiting in his office when he arrived, looking simultaneously impressed and exasperated. That email was either brilliant or insane, she said. I haven't decided which. Can't it be both? Probably is. She pulled up her tablet. I've been monitoring responses. About 60% of employees are supportive, 30% are nervous about instability, 10% are actively hostile and already updating their LinkedIn profiles. Let the hostile ones leave. We don't need people who only stay when things are comfortable. That's very zen for someone whose company is currently melting down. Is it melting down or transforming? Depends on your perspective. Victoria smiled. You're different than you were 3 weeks ago. I spent a week as a janitor and remembered how to be human. Tends to change your perspective. Well, your humanity just triggered 7 investor calls, 3 client concerns, and 1 very angry board member who wants your resignation. Just 1? David Park. The others are waiting to see what happens. Patricia Yang actually called to say she respects what you're doing, even if she thinks it's financially reckless. Ryan sat down at his desk. What do you think? I think you're trying to fix in 3 weeks what took years to break. I think you're going to fail at parts of it, and I think trying anyway matters more than whether you succeed completely. That's surprisingly optimistic from someone who watched this company crush her. I'm not optimistic, I'm realistic. Change is messy and incomplete and everyone screws it up, but screwing it up while trying is better than maintaining something broken because it's easier. There was a knock at the door. Marcus entered, looking like he hadn't slept. The emergency board meeting is set for Monday at 9 a.m., he said. David is bringing a vote of no confidence. If it passes, you're out as CEO. Ryan absorbed this information. Okay? Okay? That's all you have to say? What else is there? If the board doesn't support the direction I'm taking, then we're not aligned. Better to know that now. Marcus sat down heavily. I don't understand you anymore. 3 weeks ago, you would have fought this with everything you had. Now you're just accepting defeat? I'm not accepting defeat. I'm accepting consequences. There's a difference. The consequence is you lose the company you built. The company I built was broken, Marcus. If fixing it cost me my job, that's not defeat. That's just expensive honesty. Victoria watched this exchange quietly, then said, Marcus, what do you want? Really want. Not what you think you're supposed to want. Marcus looked caught off guard. I want the company to succeed. Define success. Profitable, growing, stable. Is that success? Or is that just not failing? Victoria leaned forward. Because I've worked with dozens of successful companies. They make money, they grow, they're stable, and they're miserable places where good people get destroyed and bad people get promoted. Is that what you want Mercer Global to be? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. No, but I don't know if Ryan's approach is sustainable. Neither do I, Ryan admitted. I'm making this up as I go. But I know the old approach wasn't sustainable either. We were just better at hiding the costs. So what happens Monday? Monday, I present our culture audit findings, the operational improvements we've already implemented, and the projected long-term benefits of the changes. Then the board votes. If they keep me, we continue fixing things. If they don't, someone else takes over, and decides whether to maintain the momentum or revert to comfortable dysfunction. And you're okay with that outcome? I'm okay with knowing I tried to build something worth being proud of. Outcomes aren't entirely in my control. Marcus stood. I'll support you Monday. I don't agree with everything you're doing, but I respect that you're actually trying to fix things instead of just managing them. After he left, Victoria said, "That was unexpected." People surprise you when you give them space to be honest. Is that what you're doing with the board? Giving them space to be honest about whether they want to change? Yeah. And if their honest answer is no, then I don't belong there anyway. Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, then showed Ryan the screen. A news article. Mercer Global CEO admits to culture of harassment in company-wide email. Well, Ryan said, that was fast. Your inbox is about to become a war zone. She was right. By noon, Ryan had 47 media requests, 15 investor calls, and one very angry message from Richard Collins's lawyer threatening legal action for defaming Trevor. Ryan forwarded the lawyer's message to Thomas Brighton with a note. Please respond with our documentation of Trevor's theft and fraud. Include a reminder that truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Then he did something he'd never done before. He left the office at 2 p.m. to pick Lily up from school himself. His daughter's face when she saw him waiting at pickup was worth every angry investor call. You're here, she said, surprised. I promised I'd be around more, starting now. What about work? Work can wait. You're more important. Lily processed this, then smiled. Can we get ice cream? Absolutely. They went to a small shop near the school, and Lily ordered cookie dough while explaining in elaborate detail about a conflict with her friend Madison over group project responsibilities. Ryan listened, asked questions, and realized his daughter was dealing with the same workplace dynamics he was. People taking credit, unequal contributions, the challenge of speaking up when systems were unfair. So what did you do? He asked. I told the teacher. Madison said I was being a tattletale, but the teacher said I was standing up for fairness. Madison was wrong. Speaking up about unfairness isn't tattling, it's courage. That's what I thought, but it made Madison mad. Sometimes doing the right thing makes people mad. That doesn't mean you stop doing it. Lily ate her ice cream thoughtfully. Is that what you're doing at work? Making people mad by doing the right thing? Yeah, some people are very mad, but you're still doing it. Because I want you to grow up in a world where standing up for fairness matters more than keeping powerful people comfortable. That's a good world, Lily said. I want that too. Ryan's phone buzzed. Victoria, Maria and her team just submitted their harassment reporting proposal. It's excellent. You should read it tonight. He typed back. Send it over. Also, my daughter wants to know if you'll come to her science fair. Victoria. When is it? Ryan. November 10th at 6 p.m., Lincoln Elementary. Victoria. I'll be there. Lily noticed him smiling at his phone. Is that Victoria? Yeah. What did she say? She said she'll come to your science fair. Lily grinned. Good. I want to meet her. That weekend, Ryan did something he hadn't done in years. He spent 2 entire days just being with his daughter. No work calls, no emails. Just parks and movies and lazy mornings reading books together. On Sunday evening, Lily fell asleep on the couch while they were watching a nature documentary. Ryan carried her to bed and she stirred slightly. Dad? Yeah, kiddo? I like this version of you better, the one who's around. Me too. Don't go back to the old version, even if work gets hard. I won't, I promise. Good. She drifted back to sleep. Ryan sat in her doorway for a while watching her breathe and thought about Emma. His wife would have liked who he was becoming. She would have been proud that he'd finally figured out what actually mattered. Monday morning arrived with the weight of everything uncertain. Ryan dressed carefully, not in armor, but in the kind of professional clothing that felt like himself. Victoria met him in the lobby at 8:30. Ready? She asked. No, but I'm going anyway. They rode the elevator to the 48th floor in silence. The conference room was already full. All 7 board members, plus Marcus, Thomas Brighton, and Patricia Yang's assistant recording minutes. David Park sat at the head of the table, looking grim. Let's get started, he said. We're here to vote on a motion of no confidence in Ryan Mercer's leadership. But first, Ryan has requested time to present findings from the culture audit. You have 30 minutes. Ryan connected his laptop to the screen. Victoria sat beside him, her presence steadying. 3 weeks ago, Ryan began, I received evidence that this company had developed a culture of cruelty. So I spent a week disguised as a janitor, watching how we actually operate when executives aren't performing for leadership. He clicked through photos, himself in the maintenance uniform, cleaning floors while employees ignored him. What I found was a company that had lost its humanity. We treated janitors, warehouse workers, and drivers as invisible. We promoted people who looked confident over people who were competent. We buried harassment complaints to avoid bad publicity. We rewarded theft and punished integrity. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Ryan pulled up the data Victoria had compiled. 30 harassment complaints dismissed over 4 years. Turnover rates 42% in operations. Productivity 30% lower in departments with toxic managers. $8 million in annual costs from culture failures. This is what broken looks like when you actually measure it, he said. We've been profitable despite our culture, not because of it, and that's not sustainable. He clicked to the next slide, changes implemented over the past 3 weeks. Dennis Crawford and 4 other managers terminated for harassment. Monica Graves and 3 HR staff removed for dismissing valid complaints. New external reporting system implemented. 30 women offered reinstatement with back pay. And these are the results so far, Ryan continued, showing preliminary data. Turnover dropped 11% in 3 weeks. Employee satisfaction scores up 18 points. Warehouse productivity increased 9%. 3 major clients specifically reached out to commend our transparency. Patricia Yang leaned forward. What about the financial impact? Short-term costs are significant. Settlements, reinstatements, investigation fees. Approximately $4 million total. But projected long-term savings from reduced turnover and increased productivity exceed $12 million annually. Projected, David emphasized, not guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed, but maintaining a broken culture guarantees continued bleeding of talent and money. We were just hiding it in different budget lines. Ryan pulled up employee testimonials. Warehouse staff, drivers, custodians, people who'd been invisible for years talking about what the changes meant to them. This is what culture change looks like, he said. It's expensive. It's uncomfortable. It makes powerful people angry, but it's the only way to build something actually worth building. He closed his laptop and faced the board directly. I know some of you think I've lost perspective, that I'm being too idealistic, that profit should matter more than principles. But I watched this company destroy people while I was upstairs approving strategies that looked good on paper. I can't unknow what I know now. I can't go back to comfortable ignorance. So either you support building something better, or you find a CEO who's willing to maintain something broken. The room was silent. Then Patricia spoke. I've reviewed the data. The culture changes are improving operational performance. This isn't bleeding heart reform. It's sound business strategy that happens to also be ethical. It's also risky, David countered. We've lost 3 investors. Richard Collins is actively working against us. Client confidence is shaky. Client confidence is shaky because we're being honest about problems we've been hiding for years, Victoria said quietly. That discomfort is temporary. The alternative is those problems eventually exploding publicly in ways we can't control. Marcus added, I didn't support this approach initially, but 3 weeks in, the data shows it's working. Turnover is down. Productivity is up. Employee engagement is the highest it's been in years. We're building something sustainable instead of just profitable. David looked around the table. We need to vote. All in favor of the motion of no confidence? He raised his own hand. One other board member joined him. Opposed? Patricia's hand went up, then Marcus, then 2 others. The final board member, an older woman named Catherine Ross, who rarely spoke, said, I abstain. I think Ryan's approach is risky, but I also think David's approach is cowardly. We've been avoiding these problems for years. At least Ryan is trying to fix them. David's face went red. The motion fails. Ryan remained CEO. He stood and walked out without another word. The board member who'd voted with him followed. The others remained. Patricia said, You have 6 months to prove this works. Show us sustained improvement in culture metrics and operational performance. If you can, I'll champion this approach to other companies. If you can't, we'll revisit leadership. That's fair, Ryan said. After the meeting, Victoria and Ryan stood alone in the conference room. "You did it," she said. "We did it. Your data is what convinced them." "No. Your honesty is what convinced them. The data just gave them permission to trust it." Ryan's phone buzzed, a text from Lily. "Did you lose your job?" He smiled and typed back, "Nope. Still employed, still coming to your science fair." Lily, "Good. Victoria too?" Ryan, "Yes. Victoria too." Lily sent back a string of celebratory emojis that made him laugh. Over the next 2 weeks, Mercer Global transformed in ways that were messy and imperfect and real. 3 more managers were terminated after investigations substantiated harassment claims. 2 executives resigned rather than participate in the culture changes. But 14 former employees returned, including Maria Gonzalez, who joined Victoria's operations team and immediately started implementing reforms that had been ignored for years. The external reporting system went live and complaints started coming in, not because harassment increased, but because people finally trusted they'd be heard. Every complaint was investigated thoroughly. Some were substantiated and resulted in terminations. Some weren't, but the fact that they were taken seriously changed the culture anyway. Productivity continued climbing. Turnover continued dropping. And slowly the company started feeling like a place where people actually wanted to work instead of just needed to work. Ryan started leaving the office by 5 p.m. most days. He had dinner with Lily every night. They talked about school and friends and science fair preparations. He met her teachers. He learned the names of her friends. He became present in her life instead of just adjacent to it. And he spent time with Victoria, coffee meetings that turned into long conversations about culture change and operational strategy, and gradually about everything else. She told him about her mother's death and the loneliness of inherited wealth. He told her about Emma and the guilt of building an empire while missing his daughter's childhood. "You're doing better now," Victoria said one evening over dinner at a quiet restaurant near the office. "I'm trying, still screwing up regularly, but trying anyway. That's what matters." Is that what you tell yourself? That trying matters even when you fail at parts of it? It's what my mother told me before she died. She said perfection was a trap, that the goal wasn't to be perfect, it was to be honest and keep trying to be better. Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. "Your mother was right." Victoria looked at their joined hands, surprised, but not pulling away. "What are we doing, Ryan?" "I don't know, but I like it. Whatever it is." "I like it too, but it's complicated. I work for you. So we'll figure out the complications, together." She smiled. "That's very optimistic for someone whose company almost imploded 3 weeks ago." "I've learned that the impossible things are usually the ones worth doing." The night of Lily's science fair arrived cold and clear. Ryan left the office at 4:30, picked up Victoria, and drove to Lincoln Elementary. The gymnasium was filled with poster boards and nervous children explaining their research to wandering parents and judges. Lily spotted them immediately and ran over. "You came," she said to Ryan. Then to Victoria. "You're Victoria." "I am. You must be Lily." "I am. Your hand is healed." Victoria glanced at her palm where the wine glass had cut her weeks ago. "It is. Good observation. I'm a scientist. I observe things." Lily grabbed both their hands. "Come see my project." Her poster was impressive. Detailed charts comparing plant growth in sand, clay, and loam soil. She'd grown actual plants in controlled conditions, documented everything meticulously, and drawn conclusions that were sophisticated for an 8-year-old. "This is amazing," Victoria said, genuinely impressed. "You designed the whole experiment yourself." "Mom helped me with the hypothesis before she died, but I did all the research and growing and measuring myself." "Your mom would be very proud." Lily looked at Ryan. "Is she right?" Ryan's throat tightened. "Yeah, she would be incredibly proud." "Good." Lily turned back to her poster. "The judges are coming soon. I need you both to look interested so they think my project is important." "We don't have to pretend interest," Ryan said. "We're actually interested." "Even better." They stood beside Lily while she presented to 3 judges, answering their questions with confidence and precision. When the judges moved on, she deflated slightly. "How did I do?" she asked. "You were perfect," Ryan said. "Nobody's perfect." "How did I actually do?" Victoria laughed. "You were excellent, clear, thorough, confident. If you don't win, the judges are idiots." Victoria, Ryan said, but Lily was grinning. I like her, his daughter declared. She tells the truth. They walked around looking at other projects while the judges deliberated. Lily held both their hands, chattering about her friends' experiments and pointing out which ones were clearly just parental assistance masquerading as student work. Jenny's volcano didn't even erupt properly, she said. And Marcus's solar system has Pluto as a full planet, which is outdated science. You're very observant, Victoria said. Dad says I get that from Mom. And the thing where I call people out when they're wrong. Both excellent traits. When the awards were announced, Lily won first place in her grade level. She accepted the ribbon with dignified pride, then immediately ran back to Ryan and Victoria. I won! You did! Ryan picked her up and spun her around despite her being almost too big for it. When he set her down, Lily looked at both of them seriously. This is the best night I've had in a long time. Because you were both here. And you both actually cared. Ryan felt something crack in his chest. I'm going to be here more, kiddo. I promise. I know. You've been keeping your promises lately. Lily looked at Victoria. Are you going to keep coming around? Victoria glanced at Ryan, then back at Lily. If that's okay with you. It's very okay with me. Dad smiles more when you're around. The real smile, not the work smile. I've heard about this real smile, Victoria said, amused. Apparently it's very distinctive. It is. You should see it more often. They drove home together, Lily falling asleep in the back seat clutching her first-place ribbon. Ryan carried her inside while Victoria waited by the car. When he came back out, Victoria said, Your daughter is amazing. She is. Takes after her mother. Takes after you too. The trying to be better part. Ryan stepped closer. I meant what I said at dinner. I don't know what we're doing, but I want to figure it out. Even though it's complicated. Especially because it's complicated. The easy things haven't been working out so well for me. Victoria smiled and kissed him, quick and soft and full of possibility. Okay then, she said, let's figure it out. Over the next 3 months, they did exactly that. Victoria moved from VP of Strategic Operations to Chief Culture Officer, a new position that gave her authority to implement reforms across the entire company. Maria Gonzalez became Director of Employee Relations, overseeing the new harassment reporting system. Jerome was promoted to Head of Operational Integration, ensuring ground-level worker input reached executive decision-making. The changes weren't smooth. 2 more board members resigned, 4 investors pulled out, but 6 new investors who specifically wanted to support ethical business practices came in. Employee retention increased by 37%. Productivity climbed steadily. And slowly, Mercer Global became known not just for logistics efficiency, but for actually treating people like humans. Ryan and Victoria navigated the complications of working together while building something more. They were careful about professional boundaries, transparent with the board about their relationship, committed to ensuring Victoria's authority wasn't undermined by dating the CEO. It was messy and imperfect and required constant communication. It worked anyway. 6 months after the emergency board meeting, Patricia Yang called Ryan into her office. The 6-month review is complete, she said. Every metric we were tracking has improved. Turnover, satisfaction, productivity, client retention, even profit margins. You've proven that ethical business practices aren't just morally right. They're financially sound. We still have a long way to go, Ryan said. Culture change isn't finished. It's ongoing. I know. But you've demonstrated that it's possible. And worth the investment. Patricia handed him a folder. I'm recommending the board approve expansion of your culture initiatives to all divisions, and I'm personally going to advocate for this approach at every company I work with. Ryan felt something like vindication, but quieter. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the people who were brave enough to speak up when the system was trying to silence them. They're the ones who made this possible. That evening, Ryan picked up Lily from school and took her to the office. She'd asked to see where he worked now that it was the good version. Victoria gave them a tour, showing Lily the operations floor where warehouse workers now attended weekly strategy meetings. The new Employee Resource Center, the board where staff suggestions were posted and actually implemented. It's different than I expected, Lily said. Less fancy. Fancy doesn't mean good, Victoria said. Functional means good. I like functional. Lily pointed to a wall where employee photos were displayed with quotes about what the culture changes meant to them. Can I read these? Of course. While Lily read, Ryan and Victoria stood together near the windows overlooking Chicago. We did something worth doing, Victoria said quietly. We're still doing it. It's not finished. No, but it's better. She leaned against him. Your daughter's right, you know. You smile different now. So do you. Yeah, I guess I do. Lily called them over to show them a quote from Maria Gonzalez. I thought speaking up cost me my career. Instead, it gave me a better one. This company isn't perfect, but it's trying. And trying matters. She's right, Lily said. Trying does matter. Ryan looked at his daughter, growing up in a world he was actively trying to make better instead of just complaining about. At Victoria, who'd risked everything to tell the truth and somehow ended up stronger for it. At the company he'd almost destroyed to rebuild it into something worth being proud of. None of it was perfect. All of it was worth it. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ryan sat on his couch with Victoria, rain pattering against the windows. I've been thinking, Victoria said, about that night at the gala, when I knelt to clean broken glass and you helped me. I remember. I was at my lowest point. I thought the company had broken me, that trying to be good at something without using my family name was impossible, that integrity didn't matter in business. And now? Now I know integrity matters more than anything, because without it, success is just performance, and performance gets exhausting. Ryan pulled her closer. Thank you. For what? For being brave when I was still hiding, for speaking truth when I was still comfortable with lies, for showing me what actual leadership looks like. You figured that out yourself. I just happened to be there when you did. No, you were more than that. You were the person who saw me when everyone else was looking through me, and that changed everything. Victoria kissed him, longer this time, full of quiet certainty. We're going to screw this up sometimes, she said. The company, the relationship, all of it. Probably. But we're going to keep trying anyway. Definitely. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching rain streak down the windows, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and complications and chances to fail. But they'd learned something that corporate strategies and business plans couldn't teach, that the goal wasn't perfection, it was honesty, effort, showing up for the people who mattered and building something worth building, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. 3 years later, Ryan stood in the same elementary school gymnasium where Lily had won her science fair. This time, she was presenting a project about ethical business practices, interviewing employees at Mercer Global about workplace culture. My hypothesis, she told the judges, was that companies perform better when they treat employees like humans instead of resources. My research confirmed this. Productivity, retention, and satisfaction all increase when culture is prioritized. The judges looked impressed. Ryan and Victoria stood together in the crowd, watching. She's going to run a better company than either of us, Victoria whispered. She's going to run a better world, Ryan corrected. After Lily won first place again, they went out for celebration dinner, the three of them plus Maria, Jerome, and Marcus, who'd all become family in the messy, imperfect way that chosen families do. Over pasta and loud conversation, Ryan looked around the table at people who'd fought beside him to build something better, who'd been brave when it was expensive, who'd chosen integrity over comfort. Lily caught him watching and smiled. You're doing the thing again. What thing? The thing where you look happy and surprised at the same time. I'm just grateful. For what? For you, for this, for learning that the best things in life are the ones worth fighting for. Lily considered this with 8-year-old turned 11-year-old wisdom. Mom would say you finally figured out what matters. She would be right. That night, after everyone left and Lily went to bed, Ryan and Victoria stood on his balcony overlooking the city. Mercer Global's building was visible in the distance, lights still on in windows where people were working late, but by choice now, on projects they cared about, in a culture that actually valued them. Do you ever regret it? Victoria asked. Burning everything down to rebuild it? Every time something goes wrong, I wonder if maintaining the comfortable dysfunction would have been easier. Then I remember that easy isn't the same as right. No, it really isn't. Do you regret taking the job? Dating the CEO? Becoming the person who pushes the whole company to be better? Victoria thought about it. I regret that it took being crushed by a broken system to find the courage to change it. But I don't regret anything that came after. Ryan pulled her close. I love you. I love you too, even though you're still learning how to not work 80 hours a week. I'm down to 50. That's progress. It's something, she smiled. But Lily's right. You're getting better at the things that matter. They stood together watching the city lights, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. That culture change was ongoing, not finished. That there would always be more work to do, more people to hear, more systems to fix. But they'd learned that perfection wasn't the goal. Presence was. Effort was. Showing up for the hard conversations and the uncomfortable changes and the people who'd been invisible for too long. They'd learned that the most important thing you could build wasn't a company or a fortune or a reputation. It was a life you didn't have to escape from, a world you weren't ashamed to pass on, a legacy measured not in dollars, but in dignity. And they'd learned that sometimes the person who saves you is the one you meet when you're both pretending to be someone else, in a hallway beside a wet floor sign, seeing each other clearly for the first time. The janitor who was a CEO, the trainee who was the billionaire. Two people who stopped performing success and started building something real. Together.